Your time is 12:30. Welcome to the 11Alive stream, 24/7. Faith Jesse joining you. We want to get straight to meteorologist Nicole Hartford, who's keeping an eye on our forecast. Nicole, how's it looking out there?
You know, we're starting to see a few isolated showers and storms pop up. It's kind of a similar timeline to what happened yesterday. We have these storms that are bubbling up as the heat and the humidity really take over. And our pattern, our forecast for today really hasn't changed all that much. Our radar is starting to show a little bit more activity. Some of these are producing some very heavy rainfall, but the upside, just looking at radar compared to yesterday, is these storms are moving a little bit more than the ones yesterday were. We're going to have a similar problem today, though, where a lot of the showers and storms develop, either move very slowly or don't move at all, which leads to very heavy rainfall over the same locations for longer periods of time. Right now, some of the heaviest rain and really all the thunder and lightning we're seeing is out towards the west of the city, down I-20, towards Douglas County into Carroll County, as well as Paulding County. And that's where we're seeing very heavy rain as well as some lightning really surrounding the Villa Rica area. These showers and storms are moving up towards the northeast. So through portions of Paulding County and even into Cherokee County, if these do manage to hold together, we could see some of that heavier rainfall. We've also got a little pocket of some heavier rain just up to the northeast of Canton into Cherokee County, and then a little isolated shower to the south of Milton and far north Fulton County. Out towards Athens, some heavier rainfall there as well. Again, throughout the day today, areas of rainfall could be a little bit more prolonged as these are fairly slow moving storms and showers. Right now, we've got an area of low pressure that's pretty much sitting right over our area that forces all this air down and allows for these diurnally driven showers and thunderstorms, which means pop-up activity in the afternoon and the evening. So we are going to keep rain chances in the forecast for anything through the remainder of the day. You will want to keep an eye on the radar for outdoor plans, and also just make sure if you hear thunder, you take it inside. For most of us, this is our view, though. We've got a lot of cloud cover that has started to develop. A few of those darker clouds as we look from our sky camera at Northside Hospital. This is down towards the south as we look towards the metro, but you can still see some sunshine, some blue sky out there as well. Temperatures have quickly warmed up in the last couple hours. We're at 84 degrees in Atlanta. With the mugginess, it does feel a couple degrees hotter, close to 90 degrees for that feels like temperature in Atlanta. Now, we won't see much additional warming through the next couple of hours. We'll tack on a few degrees, but there are already spots that are seeing kind of some rain-cooled air as well. So we've basically hit our high temperatures for the day. Our rain chances will stay around 40 to 50% through the rest of the week and then decline slightly as we go into the weekend. But we are not getting rid of this unsettled pattern anytime soon. I mentioned the possibility of some of those showers and storms that are slow moving that could allow for some isolated areas of flooding again today, especially with all the rain we've picked up in the last couple of weeks. Our ground is already saturated, so where those heavier areas of rain develop, we could see some pooling on the roadways. Our flood risk is not too elevated. It's in the marginal level, but it is still a possibility. So the best thing to note is that if you see standing water while you're out driving, do not try to drive through it. Here's how our forecast track paints the picture through the rest of the afternoon, just on and off showers and thunderstorms. It is impossible to pinpoint exactly where these showers and storms will develop, where the heavier rainfall will focus, and it's possible really anywhere. It is likely that at some point throughout the rest of the day today, you see at least a little bit of rainfall or hear a rumble of thunder off in the distance. Because these are driven by the heat and humidity, though, our rainfall will taper off through the overnight hours. We'll wake up tomorrow morning with mostly dry conditions. So for kids headed off to school at the bus stop in the morning, you don't really have to worry about that rainfall. It's really just the afternoons. The Braves also playing today, so if you do have tickets to go see the Braves game, if you're headed out to Truist Park, you need to be aware of that possibility for some rainfall. Showers and storms look most likely before first pitch, and then rain chances will be decreasing as we go throughout the game and into the evening. Temperature-wise, it should be fairly comfortable for this time of year. We're used to temperatures around this time of year in the 90s with a lot of heat, and that won't necessarily be the case today. High temperatures are running a couple degrees below average, but they will start to go up as we go into the weekend. So highs will be closer to that 90-degree mark, which is seasonally appropriate for this time of year. And part of that has to do with the building Bermuda high off into the Atlantic. This is a really pretty common weather pattern that takes over through the summertime months here across North Georgia. It's essentially a ridge of high pressure that develops in the Atlantic, and it keeps a steady stream of kind of muggy air coming in from the southeast. It just means daily pop-up showers and thunderstorms and a little bit more heat and humidity. What could provide a little bit of heat relief each day is that potential for rainfall, and our 7-day rainfall totals look pretty impressive. We're talking widespread totals of about a ½ inch to 1.5 inches, but especially where we see the heavier rain develop, we could see totals much higher than that in some localized areas. We've been on a stretch of stormy weather across North Georgia that's lasted for the last couple of months. We've kicked off August with over a ½ inch of rainfall so far this month. Most of that was picked up yesterday, and this has really helped us to close the gap. We are still in a deficit for the year so far, but it has shrunk a lot compared to the deficit that we were seeing just a couple months ago. 7-day forecast, pretty much rinse and repeat. Pop-up showers and thunderstorms expected. High temperatures hanging out around that 90-degree mark, but especially into the weekend, our feels like temperatures will start to creep up into the mid to upper 90s, even pushing the triple digits in some spots. So it is about to get a little hotter out there, but with the daily rainfall, we could also get to enjoy a little bit of rain-cooled air in some spots as well.
Hey, we love it. It's summer. Thank you so much for giving us the look. We truly appreciate it, Nicole.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, let's get to some more headlines that we are following for you around our neighborhood this midday. Well, now 12:30 streaming. We are continuing to follow the standoff that took place in southeast Atlanta. If you remember, this was a 14-hour standoff. We brought it to you on 11Alive News this morning. We are hearing that police responded to a domestic dispute at a home in southeast Atlanta, a man barricading himself inside of that home, leading to this 14-hour standoff. Let's head to 11Alive's Ariana Maniz, who filed this report this morning.
A man is now in custody after leading police on an hours-long standoff here in southwest Atlanta. Police say were first called to this neighborhood around 8 p.m. to a home on Fletcher and Sim Street. Police say they were called for a dispute. Police say the man was wanted for aggravated assault and he refused to come out of his home. Police say he barricaded himself inside of the house, refusing to come out despite officers' orders. Now, we were here when SWAT team members arrived here on the scene. It wasn't until 9 a.m. that police were able to take this individual into custody. Now, we saw the man be checked out by Grady Ambulance. Police say that he'll be taken to the Grady Mental Health Unit to be checked out. No word on if he'll face any charges at this point. Now, we did speak to the landlord, and he tells us that the individual, what he says, just went crazy. He was making out calls saying that he will not leave the house alive. Now, we're still waiting to learn if the individual will face any charges, but for now, the scene is clear. Reporting from Southwest Atlanta, I'm Ariana Maniz for 11Alive.
Our thanks to Ariana for that report. Hey, let's take a quick break. We'll see you on the other side. Welcome back to 11Alive 24/7. We are monitoring stories across the country. We are in Michigan right now. A huge election out of the primary coming out last night, where we do know that Democrat Abdul El Sayed will take on Republican Mike Rogers in the Senate. This is an open race in Michigan. We found out about the Democratic nominee and the nominees last night, so we have these lined up. Let's go in to this presser right now because we are expecting Republican nominee for Senate, Mike Rogers, to take the podium right now. Lisa McClain, representative from Michigan, is speaking. Let's listen in.
To be an election between common sense and communist crazy. And y'all got to do me a favor. You got to stop using the word socialism and socialists, because that's not what they are. They're communists. This is going to be a contrast election, and I say it's going to be a contrast for America. We have got to point out the radical, crazy ideas. Defund the police, men and women's sports, open borders. And I remind everybody every time I talk, every single Democrat voted to raise your taxes and take money out of your pocket because the Democrats think they are a much better steward of your hard-earned tax dollars than they are, right? All you got to do is take a look at Minnesota. There's no fraud going on there, right? I mean, come on. We need to call it out, and we need to make sure we make those Democrats eat their words, and more importantly, we need to make sure they own their words. So just exactly why are they so embarrassed of their policies? Why do they need to go back and take down 4,000 tweets? Because they know they don't have the winning message. We have the winning message. We have freedom. We have capitalism. We believe in traditional American values. We are on the right side of the issues. Let's own it. And let's go in big and bold and aggressive. We have the resources. And we have, most importantly, the right and the best candidates. So one, I want to thank Mike Rogers. Where are you, Mike? There you are. Thank you for putting this unity lunch together. And thank you to our, where are you? Our next governor, John James. But I want to take a minute because what is near and dear to my heart, obviously, is Congress, right? So we have to have unity in Congress, of which we do, and I want to make sure everybody understands that for us to win in America, which we will, winning starts right here in the state of Michigan. And we have some of the best congressional candidates, and I would like them to come up and join me on the stage and say a few minutes so you get an opportunity to introduce, or I get an opportunity to introduce them, you get an opportunity to meet them. Because one thing, there's only one thing that can beat us, and that's if we don't show up and we don't get motivated to vote. But I know, looking at this room, I feel like I'm at a big Italian wedding right now, right? I'm talking, we're eating, I'm looking way in the back. Seriously, take a look around for a minute. Look at the people in this room. It goes way to the back. So thank you. I know you all, yeah, I see you waving. I see you, girl. I know you guys could be anywhere, but you chose to be here because you care about this country and you care about this state. And for that, I appreciate you. But let's introduce our congressional candidates, starting with, I got to get my glasses on for a minute, Ethan Baker, who is the current mayor of Detroit. Oh, I'm sorry, not Detroit. Oh my God, it's been a long.
You've been listening in to Michigan Representative Lisa McClain there with Michigan Republicans as we await to hear from the Senate nominee. But first, we want to head over to Maryland, where we are expecting to hear from Governor Wes Moore on an update for a big horse race there. Let's take a look or listen in to the update on the Preakness Stakes.
So it's snacks and barbecue. Ashley and her friends pushed grocery carts filled with food and drinks from the parked cars of racegoers to the racetrack gates. Her family lived beside Pimlico. They were entrepreneurs. Ashley herself has become a very successful entrepreneur. They found a way into this tradition. Marylanders like her are why we created the Preakness Festival. I always said, if you attended anything that the Preakness Festival had, you went to the Preakness. Because this is what we're doing in Maryland. We're building an inclusive economy. We're creating bigger tables. Because if Preakness is going to make a real impact in our communities, every community needs a seat at the table. We have highlighted the Maryland equine industry with a horse farm tour in counties all across the state. We have created new opportunities for local businesses. We have brought cultural events into communities across Maryland. And we have showcased the George Spider Anderson Music and Arts Festival in partnership with Park Heights Renaissance. That's right, you can applaud for that. Our legacy is strong because our people are strong. Right, LaRon? It is strong because business leaders, artists, educators, community advocates, and public servants and horsemen decided to build something inclusive together. Preakness is not just about a race. It is about preserving our history. It is about uplifting communities, and it is about embracing our culture. It is about believing that the story of our past does not limit our future. Together, we can write a new chapter, a chapter where all Maryland families share in the opportunity they helped create, a chapter where Maryland businesses grow, a chapter where families across the nation put Preakness on their bucket list, as my friend Jim Drescher said. Let me say this clearly. America, you are all invited. Baltimore welcomes you. Maryland welcomes you. I mean, look at this room. There are people that will make this future real and tangible. Business leaders, elected officials, community partners, all of us. And if we commit to doing the work together, we will write a chapter in the story of this state unlike one that has ever been written before. The wind is at all of our backs. It's now my honor and my most favorite thing to do. Introduce the love of my life, the visionary, the 63rd governor of the state of Maryland, Wes Moore.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon for all of the work and all of the leadership that you have provided. Good afternoon for a beautiful day inside of the state of Maryland. Good afternoon to a time when we look around this room. What we see Maryland. We see our elected officials, we see our community leaders, we see everybody and everybody that it took to make this happen. And we also see a place and a space where we also know that the ownership should belong in our hands because the future should be determined by us. And we're thankful for the work of my amazing wife and our state's First Lady, Dawn Moore. Where every team knows that every member is essential, but every team needs a quarterback. And let me tell you something. I know we got Lamar in Baltimore, but we got Dawn in Maryland. We're gonna be all right. And we're grateful because today's news is truly historic. It's historic because it means that for everybody here, that our future is now in our hands. And in the moment when we know that we have such a great opportunity to be able to build and to grow, we know we are thankful and we are excited to be able to build and to grow together. And so we've got a few really important announcements that we are here to make today. The first is that we are moving the date of the Preakness, and we are going to move it back to be able to ensure that the winner of the Kentucky Derby will then be prepared to compete in the second leg of the Triple Crown, because the Triple Crown will continue, and it will continue to be Preakness, and by moving the date, you're then providing additional time and space for our horses and the people who compete in the Derby to be able to then now compete, to be able to be part of that Triple Crown. The second, the Maryland Jockey Club has finalized a new 6-year agreement with NBC Sports. That means this agreement now means that millions more people will be able to tune in and watch this iconic race weekend. It also means that when they do this race, and by the way, by moving it, in addition to moving it time, we're also moving it to a Sunday as well. It means that more people will watch and witness the greatest show in the Mid-Atlantic and continue to see Maryland on the world stage, exactly where Maryland belongs. But these changes are about more than just television and timing. They also continue to demonstrate what happens and what Maryland can do when Maryland controls what happens next. The third, we are making key investments in the area and the neighborhoods as well, because we know what kind of societal and financial return that we are going to see with that investment. As I said from the outset of this process, the goal was not just to create winners on the track. The goal was to make sure we were creating winners off the track too. And last year, we acquired Pimlico Racecourse. As we speak, we're investing to redevelop it into a best-in-class facility in all of American horse racing, and we're doing it while also making sure that we can and will invest in Park Heights. Yeah. Well, last month, with our partners on the Board of Public Works, we acquired Laurel Park Racetrack to transform it into one of Maryland's statewide thoroughbred training centers. And just last week, we completed the acquisition of the intellectual property rights to the Preakness and Black Eye Susan. This guarantees that the Preakness will call Baltimore home for decades to come. And by the way, here's the thing to remember about it too. We did all of this without using a single penny from general fund tax dollars. So the taxpayers will benefit from it, but the taxpayers are not paying for it. We made this decision for a simple reason. You cannot control your future if you do not own it. You do not control what the future brings if you aren't the ones making the decision about what the future brings. Maryland now owns the rights. Marylanders now own the assets. Marylanders will make the decisions. More than 28,000 Maryland jobs depend on this industry. The horse racing industry generates about $3 billion to the state of Maryland. And considering all of those things, it's important that Marylanders are the ones who are making the decisions about its future. And here's what I also know. I'm depending on the people right here in this room and in our communities to make sure that we get this right. The business community, our partners in elected office, the horsemen, our neighborhoods, our communities, and our families. We're going to need all of you to make sure this works and make sure that this momentum continues, because the momentum we are now seeing to grow and diversify our economy, it is real. That in the last 3 years, we have had over $14 billion of private investment in our state. In recent months, we've announced massive and historic deals with Samsung Biologics, with AstraZeneca, and the Sphere is coming to Maryland and coming to Prince George's County. We've locked in the Baltimore Orioles, which is helping to lead a Baltimore renaissance that is taking place. We've locked in a $1 billion Capital of Quantum initiative and investment from Microsoft. And in the past 6 months, Maryland's job growth rate has not just beaten the national average, it has almost doubled the national average. So we know we have more work to do, but we know we're not going to stop doing it until the job is done. Because I will always bet on Maryland. Today, this Preakness deal joins the list of things that will not just grow our economy, but continue to show that in Maryland, we control our own destiny. And we don't need others' help to do it. Preakness can and will remain the second jewel of the Triple Crown, and nothing will change that. And by the way, winning the Triple Crown.
All right, so we are listening in to several stories across our country. You were just listening to Maryland Governor Wes Moore giving an update on the Preakness Stakes. Up in the top right, you see the Republican nominee for Michigan Senate, Mike Rogers, speaking. And of course, we're keeping an eye on the stock market. But let's bring in meteorologist Julie Martin to give us a look at our forecast this Wednesday. Julie, what's it looking like?
Well, we're starting to get some storms going out there, so I want to take you outside, show you the satellite, the radar right now. Dealing with a lot of lightning, actually, as we head off into Paulding and even into Cobb and Carroll counties there. So looking at least a couple of kind of feistier storms there around Dallas, and we'll continue to see this kind of activity actually throughout the afternoon hours. Pop-up storms once again with us today. It does look like we do have also a low-level chance of maybe even getting some flash flooding as a result. So 86 over the downtown area right now. Temperatures are sitting in the middle 80s for most of us, 90 in Eatonton, 76 though up in North Georgia. So over the next 12 hours, we're expecting rain chances to increase this afternoon with the heat of the day, much like what we've been getting, but maybe even a little more robust. And then looks like by the time we get into the evening hours tonight, past dinner time, we start to really settle it down. High temps today likely around 87, so we're still a couple of degrees below average. And then taking a look at your forecast track, this will give us an idea of what we can expect here in terms of those storms coming in. This is 2 o'clock, and then noticing here 6 o'clock. So this model not picking up on as much activity, but still we'll have to watch out for any of those really, unpredictable pop-up storms. The flood risk here for your Wednesday looks like this. It is marginal, and then on Thursday, it's pretty much all of us in that marginal risk. A 50% chance today, and then lower chances as we work our way toward the weekend. All right, here is your 7-day outlook, and it does look like we're going to keep the rain chances with us, at least low-level rain chances for the foreseeable future. Temperatures are going to edge up a little bit as we get into the weekend, back into the 90s. Lots of heat, lots of humidity, Faith.
Lots of heat, lots of humidity, and it is a Georgia summer, so we just have to make sure that we're staying safe out there. We did have those flash flood warnings yesterday.
Yeah.
And so just got to make sure we are super appreciative of you and the entire team.
Yeah, we'll watch for that later on today. Right now, there's just a statement about that, but right now, nothing yet.
Okay, good to know. Thank you so much,
Sure.
Julie. All right, let's take a quick break, everyone. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back into 11Alive 24/7. Faith Jesse joining you here with the stream. Right now, we are monitoring stories all across the country, in our backyard, and the nation. But right now, we want to head up to Maryland. Moments ago, we just heard Governor Wes Moore speak on Preakness Stakes, of course, part of the Triple Crown there. Let's listen in to city and state leaders also speaking at the podium right now.
I'm like, I missed that. This is tremendous having this here. It was loaned to us from the Boniface family, who won this in 1983 with deputed testimony, the last Maryland bred to win the Preakness. So it's very, very ceremonial and historic. You know, we acknowledge the great history of this race, and especially the Preakness being 2 weeks after the Derby. But we recognize that change should always be examined. Other professional sports constantly reevaluate their rules, and now is this time for change. Moving the Preakness 1 week later, as the governor alluded to, later it's going to allow us for greater participation, and it's just that is simply the goal. But I think at 3 weeks, it also maintains the test of a champion. It's going to take a lot to do it. Additionally, the Black-Eyed Susan moving to the Saturday provides for a potential historic day. We're incredibly excited to grow that day. We now have a championship weekend, right? 4 of the next 6 years, that weekend will be on Memorial Day weekend. And from here on out, Baltimore will now be the focus of that weekend in the future. With renovations well underway at Pimlico, a training center, obviously the Preakness IP in our hands, Maryland's future is bright. I did want to touch on the series announcement that Naira and Churchill announced on Monday. And it was just obviously recently announced, and we look forward to more details coming out on that. The majority of that series races are actually in the summer and the fall. But we stand up here today, and the Preakness is focused on the Triple Crown. The Triple Crown has been going for 100 years, and it's going to be around for 100 more. And it will always run through Pimlico. So lastly, thank you to Governor Moore, First Lady, for their unwavering support of this industry and the Jockey Club especially. So thank you so much. I want to introduce John Miller, Senior Vice President of Operations of NBC Sports.
My name is John Miller. I run acquisitions and programming for NBC Sports, and I'm thrilled to be here, and I'll let you in on a little secret. I'm a son of Maryland. I was born and raised here. So this is, there was a little bit more than just trying to get a deal done. I wanted to make sure that the Preakness was going to live for a long, long time on NBC. I used to come to the Preakness when I was a kid in high school and college, and I remember what a fun day it was, and I haven't missed a Preakness in I don't know how many years. We've been broadcasting it since 2001, and I think I've been to every one. So we're excited to announce that we're extending our relationship for 6 more years. As the governor has mentioned, we're now going to move the Preakness a week later. We're actually going to move it 8 days later. So there will be 22 days following the Derby until the Preakness. That'll be on that Sunday of Memorial Day, and the Black-Eyed Susan will be on Saturday. What that does, it does a couple of things. It enables the horses to recover. It enables us to take a better advantage of the horses that are at the Derby to come here. It also gives NBC an extra week of promotion. NBC has a very strong lineup of programming during that time of the year. In addition to having the Kentucky Derby, we also have the NBA playoffs and the conference quarterfinals, semifinals, and every other year we have the conference finals. The same team that does the Kentucky Derby will come down here to produce the Preakness, which is an unbelievable group of production and on-air talent people. So we really feel that all these things added together give us an added advantage to make the second leg of the Triple Crown as big and as prominent as ever. And we are thrilled to celebrate the history of Baltimore and the state of Maryland. I really share your vision, First Lady Moore. I think it's going to be terrific to be here on Memorial Day weekend. And we are thrilled and cannot wait to get started. There will be 10 hours of coverage Preakness weekend between NBC, SN, Peacock, and NBC Sports, which is unprecedented for this property. And we are looking forward to it. And I thank all of you. Bill, you've been an unbelievable partner. I also want to recognize, standing over here, Gary Quinn, who's my colleague, who has been with me every step of the way on this, and we would not have been able to work through all the things that we have to work through inside and outside of our company without his help. So on behalf of everybody at NBC Sports, I want to thank you, and let's go racing.
Hey, Tom.
Governor, thank you. There are only a handful of iconic sports events on this planet. The Super Bowl, the World Series, the Olympics, the World Cup, and the Triple Crown.
Yeah.
How do you ensure that the legacy of the Triple Crown remains intact, given this announcement of this Thoroughbred Championship Series, which a lot of people have questions about right now?
Yeah, well, I would say we just did. By making sure that we continue to establish that Preakness maintain that status as the second crown of that Triple Crown. By making sure that we're going to invest in it and now have a media partner like NBC that is going to put together, a record coverage, by ensuring that we could move the dates. So you're actually creating a better environment for the winner of the Derby and those who compete in the Derby to then turn around and compete inside of the Preakness. By continuing to work, and again, we will continue to look for partnerships with others. But I think that if you want to talk about what needs to be done to invest in the Triple Crown, what needs to be done to invest to make sure that the grandeur of the Triple Crown continues to exist, my answer is that's exactly what we've just done. And you're absolutely right. The Triple Crown will continue to be one of the marquee sports events of the year, and will continue having Preakness be at the center of it.
Does the Churchill Downs Naira Thoroughbred Championship Series threaten the success of Preakness?
No, in fact, I would say that the reason that we wanted to take the posture that we did to continue to hold on to the ownership and continue to making really important announcements like we did today of both moving the date and also announcing this partnership with NBC is because we believe that growth within the industry is a good thing for all of us. And in Maryland, we are ready to do our part to be able to ensure that we can create winners both on the track, but also winners off of the track. And we think that's actually going to be a good thing for everybody involved.
Churchill Downs did take ownership of the IP, that Baltimore would eventually lose this race and lose that second Georgia Crown?
Well, I'd say we'll never know. I mean, that was the point. I think the whole point of continuing to maintain ownership is we are trying to remove any uncertainty, and by.
All right, so you were just listening in to Governor Wes Moore speaking on Preakness in the Maryland area, of course, part of the Triple Crown, just giving an update there to the Preakness Stakes. We'll continue monitoring that scene, but first we want to head here back home because, guys, it's almost football season. The Falcons are getting ready. They are in Flowery Branch, and so is 11Alive's Maria Martin, who has been tracking the team for us as they gear up for a new exciting season, some new faces, some new contracts. Also, Maria, some not so good news for one of the defensive players here. What are we learning today?
Yeah, Faith, the biggest news that we got yesterday, aside from Bijan Robinson's contract extension, was the fact that Jalen Walker was hurt at the end of practice. I was standing there, and it was honestly one of the more emotional scenes that I've seen in a training camp. Jalen Walker goes down. It appeared to be at the time a knee injury, which we do know now, which I'll get into in a second. The entire team on a knee, they go over to him, and they're trying to figure out what's wrong. He then gets carted off, which is protocol during training camp, and ultimately they were all continuing their thoughts and prayers. Today we get word from the team officially that it is a torn ACL and Jalen Walker will be out for the remainder of the season. What does that mean now? Well, Jalen Walker leaves a very big hole within this pass rush, especially when James Pierce Jr., who was his counterpart in the first round last year, they are waiting to see whether or not the NFL is going to A, suspend James Pierce Jr., and B, how many games that suspension will actually look like. Those two guys together combined produced 16 sacks for this defense last year. That is a big loss for their pass rush. There are some of those new faces pieces, Faith, that you kind of alluded to a little bit. Aziz Ojulari is a guy that comes to mind. He's coming over here and has kind of a breath of fresh air with this new coaching staff, and this new environment also being close to home certainly helps Aziz as well. Samson Ebukam is a name you need to pay attention to, as well as Braylon Trice, who honestly has tried to work out in the NFL for the last couple of years. He's had 2 season-ending injuries leading up to this year. A lot of coaches believe very heavily in what Braylon Trice can do. So there are some names mixed in there, but this is a big gap to fill. The Falcons, remember, do have a lot of cap space as well. They could dip into free agency and go get a veteran pass rusher, which might be the move for Ian Cunningham, who has not really explored that option so far, the new general manager. So certainly losing a guy like Jalen Walker, who was just entering his second year in the NFL. He had such a tremendous rookie season and has such a large veteran presence within that linebacker room. He's definitely going to be missed. You hate to see it to any player, but especially a guy who it feels like everything was in front of him and he was going to take a very big step forward this year.
I will say and just put the positive words out there, the end is not now. He just has to recover, and we will see him in the future as he recovers from that. But it is very unfortunate for him and the team, but we'll continue to monitor that. Maria, I do want to get to some positive news. We heard the big news that you gave us with Bijan yesterday. I'm hearing that you all just heard from him moments ago.
Yes.
What is the feeling like right now out there in Flowery Branch, knowing that not only do the Falcons have just an incredible quarterback in Bijan, but that he is now there to say they said that they saw his value, they're paying him the money, and they're going to have a good season with him, it looks like.
Yeah, Faith, I mean, look, it's really rare to have a running back deal of this caliber. Obviously, he is now the highest paid running back in the National Football League. He resets the market for all running backs in the future who do want to get paid, at least ones that play like Bijan Robinson, right? And Jahmyr Gibbs in Detroit is probably going to have a very similar looking contract. He is still a hold-in up there in Detroit. Both of them were drafted in the 2023 draft class, and even Bijan Robinson was talking about his buddy Jahmyr and said that they have talked, and it's something that we're obviously going to continue to watch. But Bijan Robinson, people are happy to have him back. He is probably happier than anybody else to be back out on the football field. He's in the middle of what the coaches are calling a ramp-up period for Bijan because he did miss the first 5 practices of training camp. But Bijan's a guy where you can't really tell him to slow down. He's someone that wants to get out there and go full speed right away. But since this is a ramp-up period for everyone else, that does include Bijan Robinson. He's back in his helmet, in his pads. This was the second day of pads out here at training camp. But Bijan Robinson, he's about as humble as they get, guys. I mean, you hear the stories about Bijan Robinson. I talked about it at length yesterday, but I'm telling you, I'm around this guy all the time. He is the same person every single day. He even mentioned a contract of this magnitude worth up to $75 million, $51 million in guaranteed money. Faith, he's going to be making north of $22 million per year in this 3-year contract extension. He said it's not going to change him. He doesn't want it to. He wants to remain the same. Even the guy that drafted him or was a part of the staff in drafting him back in 2023, then head coach of the Falcons, Arthur Smith, texted Bijan this morning, and he told Art, it's not going to change me. I'm going to remain the same player. He got this contract because of how he's played so far. Why would he change now? That's his mindset. That's his mantra. And just to give you a little bit more insight of how humble and just normal Bijan Robinson is off the football field, he said the clerk at his gas station around his house here in Metro Atlanta, he's now befriended this woman. She doesn't watch football at all, but she's so happy every time she sees Bijan bounding through the doors. It's incredible stuff. You can't make it up. The guys are actually a little bit tired of talking about how good he is because Jake Matthews told me, I don't think this guy's ever done anything wrong in his entire life. Bijan's as good as they come, and now he's the highest paid running back in NFL history. It is very deserving for sure.
He's certainly a role model, just 24 years old and already making a huge mark. Big congratulations to Bijan and the entire Falcons team for having him. And we're just really excited that he is going to be here in Atlanta, calling it home for much longer. Maria, let me ask you about this because according to one of your tweets, a lot of movement with this quarterback who's going to ultimately be the pick here. What do we know?
Well, all 4 quarterbacks are still participating. And actually, today was very interesting because Tua Tagovailoa, who was a surprise injury at the beginning of training camp with this back issue that kind of flared up on him, he told us yesterday, I fully anticipate to be completely back tomorrow, meaning today. He looked very good. guys. He was running in 11-on-11s, the team drills. He was sharp. One of the things about Tua that's always been kind of his MO, if you will, is he's an incredibly accurate passer as a quarterback. And the front office, from the very beginning, when they said this is going to be an all-out battle at the quarterback position, have said they want someone who is very good with accuracy. That's going to be a quarterback. That would be Tua Tagovailoa. His bread and butter is really those throws, the intermediate throws in the middle of the field. He was hitting all of the marks on that. I actually tweeted he threw an interception to Avion Terrell, the rookie that everybody loves because he's AJ's little brother. But right after that throw, because it does happen, of course, in training camp, right after he had that interception, he came back and threw an incredible pass in double coverage and completed it. So Tua looks sharp. He looks good. He didn't look like he was operating a little bit more gingerly like he has in the first couple days of practice. That's not to say Michael Penix Jr. doesn't look good, but he's not repping at the rate that Tua is at this point because, Faith, this is the hardest hitting practice we've seen so far in camp. That doesn't say a lot. We're only in week 2. The first day of pads came on 2 days ago. This was the second day of pads. But honestly, I've been around this team for a long time. Of the previous head coaches, I've not seen a practice that hit this hard as early as I have in Kevin Stefanski's tenure. So I think that's very interesting. But keeping our eyes on the quarterback race, Michael Penix Jr. said he feels great. He doesn't have any appointments with doctors coming up. However, we know that he does need to hit another benchmark to get closer to this full contact that we're anticipating Michael to have. And to be honest, this quarterback competition cannot be fair until both of them are cleared to go full contact. So to me, it needs to be a fair competition for them to choose a quarterback. But unfortunately for Michael Penix Jr., time and timing may not be on his time. Tua Tagovailoa, remember, has taken all of the reps as QB1 in the offseason. So talking about voluntary workouts, OTAs, mandatory minicamp, it was Tua. So Michael Penix Jr. has been waiting in the wings, taking the mental reps, but there is nothing that replicates live football on the field. Hopefully both of them can be full speed here as we continue into training camp at some point.
Hope so, and we know that you will be on it, bringing us the very latest. Maria Martin live for us in Flowery Branch. Maria, thank you so much.
Thanks, Faith. Appreciate it.
All right. And she'll be giving us some more updates in later editions of 11Alive on training camp as we continue to watch our Falcons rise up and get ready for another exciting season. Hopefully a season with a whole lot of W's. Okay, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back after. Welcome back into the stream. Faith Jesse here with you on 11Alive 24/7. We have an interview on deck for you talking about the need for organ donations in minority communities. This month is National Donor Awareness Month. National Minority Donor Awareness Month. Excuse me, and we are shining a light on a critical need for organ donations from minority communities. So here to talk about it is the executive director of LifeLink, Hope Weed, joining us on the stream. Hope, thank you so much for being here. I gotta say, it's nice to kind of have a name twin in the way. My name is Faith, you're Hope. People always call me Hope, so it's nice to actually see an actual Hope. We also have a Grace here, so.
Oh, nice. I have actually been called Faith before myself, so we should work well together.
I absolutely love it. Well, we truly appreciate you coming on. I think it's such an important topic and one that we need to get that information out there. So a question that I just asked my producer when I knew that we were doing this segment was, what is the need for minority organ donors from minority communities? When I hear a question like this, I wonder, isn't an organ just an organ? Does it matter where that person comes from? Why is it important for this push for those in minority communities to donate their organs?
Sure. So nationally, there's, already over 100,000 people waiting for a transplant. If we could break it down to Georgia specifically, there are more than 3,000 Georgians who are waiting for a kidney transplant alone. Nearly 62% of people on Georgia's kidney transplant waiting list are Black, and more than 74% of everyone waiting on the transplant wait list in Georgia comes from a minority community. So it really brings it home to the significance and of why we need to have more registered donors to make that commitment to leaving a legacy behind to help others that are in need as well.
And then is there specific importance as to having donors from diverse racial and ethnic backgrounds? What purpose does that serve and why is that important?
Sure. So minority communities, they're disproportionately affected by conditions, like diabetes, high blood pressure, and that can often lead to organ failure, and that increases the need for transplants. So anyone can actually donate an organ. However, patients often have better chances finding a compatible match with someone who shares a similar ethnic background. So here again, that's why we definitely want to increase donor registration amongst the communities, and especially among minority populations, and leave that legacy. Where to learn more about it, just go to mystorycontinues.com.
And it's true too, and this is a question that I just for clarity, if you register to be an organ donor, of course, when you pass, that means that your organs will be donated for someone in need. However, when it comes to organ donations, is it true that any race can donate to any other race or ethnic background, or is it better to have an organ donated from someone else who is Black for a Black woman, for instance? I don't know. That's why I'm asking you. What are you all seeing?
Sure. So anyone can be a donor. You can donate to any ethnic background. It's more or less based on some blood type testing, in addition to just a blood type of, A or B, what people think of. There's some antigens that go into that. So it's more or less, does your blood match up? Is the organ going to be accepted? And it's not all based on ethnicity. So there is a list. We definitely say it can help be more compatible. And with so many minorities that are on the list, it definitely helps when you have more of the minority community sign up to be registered donors.
Okay, so it's really based on blood, that's so on the medical sense, but it could be more compatible if you come from a similar ethnic background sometimes.
Correct. There's a lot of testing that goes into it. Blood testing, it's a whole process, shall we say. But ethnicity, sex, age, those are not specific individual determinations if someone can accept an organ or donate.
Absolutely, and we know that some people get the news that they need an organ, tomorrow, or needed it 2 weeks ago, and they're so far down on the list, and this is a life or death situation. Here in Georgia specifically, what are we seeing when it comes to the need of those who need life-saving organs? And let's talk about our neighbors and minority communities. Is that need being met right now?
No, I think, if it was being met, we wouldn't have 3,000 people that are on that wait list. And that's why we strive to get education out. That's the significance as well of National Minority Donor Awareness Month, is bringing significance and awareness to the education of what donation is, what it is for the caregivers, the donors, giving them honor, the donor families, bringing light to the whole process of organ donation and how you can maximize the gift of life. One organ donor can actually save or have a life enhancing organ for 8 people.
Oh, wow.
And that's just for organ donation. If you include tissue in there, it's greater than 75 people potentially. So one person can help, transplant others and reduce that transplant wait list. Georgia is definitely of a high need. And it's, like I said, high blood pressure, diabetes, that often can affect the organs. And it is evident by the fact that we have about 3,500 people that are in need of a heart, lung, liver, kidney, pancreas. But out of that 3,500, a little over 3,000 need kidneys.
And then for somebody who might be interested in registering to be an organ donor, can anybody of any age or condition register to be an organ donor?
Yes, anybody can. It does not matter your age. We will welcome all and encourage everyone to sign up to be a registered donor. And it is truly a selfless decision, and it is leaving a legacy behind. And that is why we say mycontinues.com. Go there, learn about donation and how to sign up to be a registered donor.
And you were in my head because that was going to be my next question for people that need more information. Where do they go? But I'll switch it up a little bit. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you would like for our communities to know?
No, I think you hit all of the high points, and we reiterated, just the constant need. And the organ donation, it provides hope to those potential recipients. It's a domino effect, if you will. And it just, for people who sit on a waiting list, especially for kidneys, when they go to dialysis 3 days a week and being told that news, and if it's your, mother, your father, your brother, your sister, your children, just when you get the news, to know that people do sign up to be donors, they are selfless in that decision, the impact and the hope that it brings others.
Well, you said it right, Miss Hope Weed, bringing hope to others. We truly appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Faith.
You see what I did there?
I saw, I liked it.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. For those of you watching, we'll be posting this full interview online at 11alive.com. Please share it with your friends and family so that we can fill this need, fill this gap, fill this need, so that when somebody is in need, they can get that life-saving treatment, that life-saving organ, so that they can enjoy their lives with their loved ones a little bit longer. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back after this. Hey, welcome back. We are continuing to follow stories happening across the nation. We want to head up to Capitol Hill to the Senate, where we are hearing from Tim Kaine, the senator out of Virginia. Let's listen in.
Since he's been at the Justice Department, we know, of course, of the outrageous $1.8 billion slush fund that was created to make payments to the president's political allies. When I asked Mr. Blanche at a hearing if those who assaulted police officers here on Capitol Hill on January 6th would be eligible for those payouts, taxpayer-funded payouts, he wouldn't rule it out. He wouldn't rule that out. And at the same time, he and the department entered into a sweetheart settlement providing extraordinary tax liability protections to the president, his family, and his businesses. Essentially, a get-out-of-jail-free card for non-payment of taxes due, if that was what had been ultimately found. And now, after Republican senators, and only after Republican senators, threatened to block his nomination, did Mr. Blanche issue an order supposedly rescinding the slush fund and narrowing the scope of those tax protections. By the way, even if you narrowed the scope the way it's supposed to there, the president and his family essentially get out of jail free card for past tax liabilities that may be due. So this deal's a sham. It's not worth the paper it's written on. It's not written into the law. And nothing prevents the department from restarting the slush fund once Mr. Blanche is confirmed. Now, that's not the only example of Mr. Blanche continuing to serve as the president's personal attorney while having the title of acting attorney general. We also see that in his handling of the Epstein files. During his time at the Justice Department, Mr. Blanche has withheld critical information regarding those files rather than seek justice for the brave survivors who have shared their stories of abuse by Jeffrey Epstein and his associates. When Mr. Blanche appeared before the Appropriations Subcommittee overseeing the Department of Justice, Senator Murray and I both asked him that if we connected him with the Epstein survivors, would he meet with them and hear them out? His answer, absolutely. He promised he would do so if we connected the survivors to him. Well, we followed up multiple times. Nearly 2 months later, he had not fulfilled the promise he made in that Senate committee hearing. He had still not met with the survivors. So Senator Murray and I wrote him a letter demanding that he fulfill the promise he made, because that should be a bare minimum for someone seeking this post. And it's pretty clear he had zero intent of keeping the promise made in public at that committee hearing until Senator Tillis said that he would not vote to move his nomination out of the committee until Mr. Blanche met with the survivors. After that threat was made, the meeting happened, but it was clear from reports about the meeting by the survivors that Mr. Blanche did not do so out of respect for them and out of a genuine interest to hear what they had to say, but simply to preserve chances of his confirmation. Because according to the survivors, it was nothing more than a check-the-box exercise. In fact, they said Mr. Blanche was condescending, that he was rude, and that he was dismissive. They were interrupted and told to, quote, get to the point, unquote. Well, Mr. President, someone who can tell the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's horrific crimes to, quote, get to the point is not a person we want defending the American people, because a nominee for Attorney General should demonstrate that their loyalty will be to the Constitution and the rule of law and getting justice for everybody in America, including the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's crimes, not to the President of the United States. So, Mr. President, I hope we will recognize that if we look at the conduct and actions and records of the acting Attorney General, that we will recognize that he is not suited for this position because his record shows he has not been upholding the rule of law and the Constitution. Instead, he's been doing the business of this one man. This photo was taken today. It's taken today. These big banners of Donald Trump have been hanging outside the Department of Justice for a long time. And they send an unmistakable message to people who work inside that they better serve the interests of this one person. And if instead there's a conflict between the interests of the people of the United States and this person, this tells them, serve the interests of the President of the United States. That is not the job of the Department of Justice, and it is not the job of the Attorney General. I urge my colleagues to oppose the nomination of Todd Blanche to be Attorney General of the United States. And I yield the floor.
So you were just listening to Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen speaking on the Senate floor. A lot of movement going on with Todd Blanche, President Trump's former attorney and nominee for Attorney General. Let's head back into the Senate floor to listen in.
Whether the person who's been nominated to serve as Attorney General will serve the people of the United States, or will he serve the President, to whom he has indicated blind, complete, servile loyalty. And the recitation of facts about what Mr. Blanche has done in this incredibly important job as acting Attorney General has made clear what his client is, who that client is. There's no place at the top of the Justice Department for a person who pledges personal loyalty to anyone other than the American people. But you know, the reality here is the President won't appoint anybody to the Attorney General's position who won't act as his personal attorney. And there's a sadness that I have about this whole story that is before us. It's the story of a person who, when he was a young man, young attorney, Todd Blanche, was extraordinarily talented, was very idealistic, was a prosecutor's prosecutor, and who did abide and uphold by the rule of law. He became a new person in service of a president that I believe is corrupt. $2 billion of income to the President of the United States in his first year raises more than a mild question. And this person now to be Attorney General in his acting Attorney General role essentially provided tax immunity to the President and to all of his children, families, and affiliates. It's totally outrageous. When you say it, you can't even believe the words are coming out of your mouth. It's absolutely unprecedented. It has nothing to do with the way the public business should be conducted. But Mr. Blanche, who has considerable talents, he's used those talents to enable and to facilitate and to cover up and to revise and accommodate the corrupt goals of a president I believe is corrupt. And by the way, Mr. Chairman, as I mentioned earlier, that's who the president wants. He wants someone who's going to do his work for him, unquestioned, no matter what. But you know, there's another question that belongs right here in the United States Senate. Is there no line that the U.S. Senate will not allow this president to cross? The Senate confirmed Bondi, it confirmed Hegseth, it confirmed Patel, it confirmed Noem, and we're about to confirm Blanche. The president is abusing his authority, in my view, in every day and in every way, and that's shame on him. But the United States Senate is failing to use its authority, its power, on any day or in any way. Shame on the United States Senate. Mr. President, should not the U.S. Senate use its advice and consent authority to demand competence and integrity? Did the Senate do that? with Bondi, with Noam, with Hegseth, with Patel, and now with Blanche? Should not the U.S. Senate use its taxing authority to stop tariffs that the vast majority of this body believe are hurting the American people and are not the right of the executive to impose? Should not the U.S. Senate use its constitutional power of the purse to stop the invasion by President Trump into the power of the purse? And should not the U.S. Senate use its constitutional authority over the awesome power to declare war and stop this illegal war in Iran that, in fact, President Trump is losing? Mr. President, the President is abusing his authority. We are failing to use ours. Stop capitulating today by rejecting this nomination. I yield back.
All right, so we were just listening in on the Senate floor as they continue to discuss the legislation of the day, as well as Todd Blanche, the president's nominee for Attorney General. Let's take a quick break. We'll see you on the other side. Welcome back into the stream. We continue to monitor the movement up in D.C. on Capitol Hill. Let's take a listen into the Senate.
Against Donald Trump. Where else did the cover-up continue? Well, the Treasury Department sent to the Department of Justice what are called suspicious activity reports. A suspicious activity report is what you get when international banking transactions look like something funny is afoot, look like there is, for instance, money laundering going on. In this case, it was money laundering and human trafficking concerns that provoked the suspicious activity reports. Well, you don't have to be a genius investigator to look at a suspicious activity report and deduce that it might have something to do with some suspicious activity. It's the title of the report, for Pete's sake. Billions of dollars of transactions were behind those suspicious activity reports. How many were investigated by the Blanche Department of Justice? 0. Turned a complete blind eye to that whole aspect of the Epstein files, even though the suspicious activity reports were right in front of them. And then he goes running down to Tallahassee to interview Epstein's comrade in crime, Ghislaine Maxwell. Did he use that interview to develop any new information, to go after people who were culpable in the Epstein files? No. He used that interview to extract exculpatory comments from her about Donald Trump. Oh, that he was a perfect gentleman. And the next thing you know, she's rewarded with a transfer to a club-fed type prison. What's the excuse for that? Oh, she was at risk. We felt she was in danger. Well, look, I've been around law enforcement for a long time. This is the first time I've ever seen a prisoner allegedly in danger be transferred to a less secure setting to solve the problem of danger. Right? You move the prisoner to a more secure setting, not to a less secure setting. It makes no sense. So in the Epstein files, Todd Blanche's fingerprints are all over the screw-up and the cover-up. Then we move on to the slush fund and the Trump family tax fraud amnesty, which was cooked up in a deal surrounding a federal court proceeding, which was such a mess that the judge in that federal court proceeding has gone back to look at what the heck happened. She was looking at whether something happened called fraud upon the court. You probably haven't heard of fraud upon the court. It's unusually rare. It is a thermonuclear ethics accusation. We've looked in the history of the Department of Justice. Fraud on the court has not even been alleged against any senior DOJ official, ever. And here you have a court that opened a proceeding, an inquiry into whether or not there was fraud on the court, and that's still pending. There is still every reason to believe that Blanche may be found culpable for putting a fraud on the court together to cook up the slush fund tax amnesty scheme. That is pretty unheard of. Unfortunately, it's not uncommon in this Blanche Department of Justice. There is a cascade of criticism from federal courts about misconduct by this Department of Justice, misconduct that is unprecedented. I will tell you, I was the U.S. Attorney for the District of Rhode Island. If judges had used words like this about my attorney's conduct in their courtrooms, there would have been consequences. At a minimum, there would have been staff meetings. There could have been referrals to the Office of Professional Responsibility. There could have been apologies required to the court. There could have been a reboot, internal office discipline of what's going on with this case. But when a judge says that the government's argument is disingenuous, when the judge says that the government's argument is a pretext for something else, when the judge says that the government has engaged in bad faith, each one of those is a 4-alarm fire word. In medicine, there are things that they call never events, things that should never happen in a hospital that you protect against. These are never event words coming from federal judges. And yet they are commonplace in the corrupted Department of Justice run by Todd Blanche. As to his complicity in the Epstein files cover-up, I offer a letter from Epstein survivors to Senators Tillis and Cornyn and ask that that be incorporated at the end of my remarks.
Without objection.
With respect to the destruction of the Department of Justice that he has wrought, I would also ask that we add George Will's column called Against Todd Blanche.
Without objection.
And with respect to this litany of criticism of the honesty of the Blanche Department of Justice, I would like to add a ProPublica article entitled Federal Judges Chastise Trump's Justice Department for, quote, unlawful, quote, unethical, and, quote, unseemly conduct, whose first sentence begins, across the country, federal judges are calling out Department of Justice lawyers, questioning in unprecedented ways whether they can be trusted to tell the truth or uphold centuries-old legal norms. I ask unanimous consent for that.
Without objection.
And then this isn't just a problem in American legal communities. There's a global magazine called The Economist.
You've been listening into the Senate floor as senators continue to discuss different legislative duties, as well as Todd Blanche, who is President Donald Trump's former attorney, now his pick for Attorney General. We'll continue to monitor this story and others across our community, across our nation, and across the world. That's all for me today on the stream. Zach Merchant is up next. I'll see you later.
All right, welcome in. 2:04, your time right now this Wednesday afternoon. I'm Zach Merchant with you for the next couple hours as we keep you up to speed on all of the biggest developments happening across the country, across the state, and right here in Metro Atlanta. We're going to kick things off with meteorologist Julie Martin, who is with us in the streaming center right now. Julie, it has been a busy week in the weather department, and we've seen a lot of different weather patterns, it feels like, in the last 7 or 12 days. What are we doing today? What do people need to know?
Yeah, well, today is kind of like yesterday. We've got the scattered showers and storms, and we're kind of stuck in this summer pattern over the next couple of days, actually, before anything really changes a whole lot. So we take you outside right now and actually seeing a lot of activity on the radar. Looking here at some lightning, actually, as we get into portions of Cobb County, Paulding, also getting a little bit of that, as well as even down toward Carroll County. And then a little bit farther to the south down I-85, Hogansville to LaGrange, also looking at some storm activity there. And more in the North Georgia area as well. It's off to our east. So really pretty much everywhere we look all around the downtown area, we're getting some kind of action. Nothing just yet downtown, 86 degrees, feels like 91. Now the rain is likely going to be coming though as we get later on into the afternoon. We'll be dodging those storms. Temperatures overall still fairly comfortable. We're still a little bit below average today, much like yesterday and the day before. And we'll stay in the 80s throughout the evening hours today until around 7 o'clock. Looking at our high temps today, around 87. So again, a couple of degrees cooler than our average of 90. But we'll keep the storms going. So this is a look at 4 o'clock showing maybe a cluster of heavier storms over maybe parts of Forsyth County and Fulton County, and taking a look at Wednesday with some more of the same coming in late tonight or early tonight, for clearing out late, if I could speak. And then tomorrow we'll do the same thing all over again at 3 o'clock, looking at scattered showers and storms, and then continuing on in through Friday with some lesser rain chances. However, the rain will still be sticking around, and that will be the case over the next several days. So we are looking at the possibility of some localized flash flooding. So this is a look at the flood risk today. Most of us are in the marginal zone. By tomorrow, just about all of us are in that marginal zone. So just watch out for any low-lying areas, that kind of thing. As any of these storms, if they do slow down, they have pretty high rainfall rates, so they could produce some flooding out on the roadways and other surfaces. Looking here at the rain chances, 50% today, we see that's already happening, and then tomorrow and Friday about a 40% chance, lower chances though as we head toward the weekend. And here is that 7-day forecast. You'll notice our temperatures do warm back into the 90s as we approach the weekend, and we keep the 30% rain chance around pretty much until we have no more days left on the 7-day here. We are going to be looking at just that same pattern, really.
Can you leave that up for just one more moment? Because it really, it's rare that we see almost the same icon on every day.
Yeah.
Wednesday today, we've got a couple more clouds, it looks like, but otherwise that's an awfully consistent looking forecast there, Julie.
Yeah, pretty typical though for August. With the heat of the day, these summertime pop-up storms, it gets so hot that we just kind of what we get stuck with.
That's why you have an umbrella.
Yeah, there you go. Just be prepared.
Julie, we appreciate you very much. Thank you, and we will see you later.
Okay.
Georgians have a lot to consider headed into the midterm elections coming up in November. A lot of statewide races. One of the big ones is for Attorney General. And we're joined right now by one of the candidates in this race, the Republican nominee, State Senator Brian Strickland. Senator, thanks for being with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on the show.
All right, so let's start here. You've been running for some time. You're the Republican nominee now, but for people who maybe are just getting to know you, why are you in this race? Why do you want to be Georgia's next Attorney General?
So number one, my wife and I have two little boys, 6-year-old Beecher and 8-year-old Charles Willis. They started first grade and second grade this week, first week back in school. And I want to make sure that when my kids are growing up in this state and when they get my age, they have the same opportunities that I have. Georgia's in a really great place. We're the number one state that people are now flocking to from around the country, number one state for business, for families. We have a lot of things we can do better. But I want to continue to improve upon that and be an attorney general that fights every single day for our families like mine and someone that puts people over the politics. I'm not doing this for one particular person, for one particular political party. I want to be an attorney general that everybody can be proud of.
Attorney General is a role that encompasses a lot of different facets of the law and a lot of different facets of life in Georgia. It touches a lot of what happens in our state. When you look at our state right now, what's the number one most pressing issue you see, and if you're elected, how would you address it?
I know you hear the buzzword a lot, affordability, but it's real. I think you have a lot of families that sit around after the kids go to bed at night and they're trying to figure out how they're going to pay their bills. Is it even worth working given the rising cost of childcare? There's a lot of big, hot button political issues we could talk about, but it all starts back with what you feel at home. And so many people feel the rising cost of living. You also have issues of crime still being a big issue in Georgia, organized crime, particularly with gangs still out of control, fentanyl in every single corner of our state, human trafficking still exists here. And so there's, as I started off saying, Georgia has a lot of great things going for us. We have a lot of challenges as well.
If you're elected Attorney General, you point to affordability. If you're elected, how do you make things more affordable here?
Yeah, so you got to use the office that you have to focus on these kind of things. So as a legislator, I worked on childcare affordability. Last year, I led a study committee that results in legislation that'll give more money for parents when it comes to paying for childcare. Also incentivize more employers to offer childcare for workers. I've supported our tax cuts, giving money back to our citizens. We've taken steps as a legislature on affordability. But as Attorney General, there's an office that deals with consumer protection. The person you elect in this office is charged with protecting Georgia families from scams, price gouging, those that prey on our most vulnerable. A lot of times, our young people, it's our elderly, those with special needs. But with AI now, anybody could be vulnerable to this. And so you got to use these tools in this office to go after those that are preying on people who are already struggling. When you have the hurricanes going through South Georgia, we saw this, of course, people unfortunately move in and take advantage of people. And so I want to be an Attorney General that puts our families first above any company, any bad actors out there. If you're going to take advantage of our working families in our state, we're going to come after you.
You brought up AI there. If affordability is one of the buzzwords of the political season we're in right now, AI is another one of them. And
That's right.
The growth of data centers, including right here in Georgia, has been at the front of a lot of discussions in communities all across our state. Some people are supportive, others very much not. This is going to become a topic of litigation in our state.
Yes.
I haven't read every filing across the state, but I suspect there's already plenty of briefs flying around. If you're elected Attorney General, what's going to be your position on data center construction in Georgia?
Well, first off, you want local governments making the decisions about whether to approve them to start with. That way you have people as close as you can to those that have elected them, that can hear from those people. And hopefully they're going to listen to constituents about where these data centers go, which counties want to have them, which communities don't want to have them. And they're not for everybody. And there's challenges that come with data centers. There's a lot of money that comes with data centers. There's also a lot of negative things that come with data centers. And you want those decisions happening on the ground. And you see these large county commission and city council meetings, those things are being considered right now. Then you step back and say, what role does the Attorney General have in that? And in particular, we are the lawyers for the Environmental Protection Division. Our job as Attorney General is to say, okay, so this was approved by this local government, but are you protecting our waterways? Are you following our environmental laws? Are you actually getting the permits that are required? Do we have the oversight that's required? And that's such an important role that I want to double down on and make sure that our office is present for every type of big development. Because it's great to have these jobs. It's great to have the money that comes, especially in rural Georgia where you need jobs. But you have to also step back and say, is someone making sure this is going to work in the long run? Is it going to affect our drinking water? How does it impact our skies? How does it impact our trees and so many things we enjoy, the natural beauties of our state? And that is my job, to be the person that steps in and says, okay, you approve this, but we're going to do it the right way to protect all Georgians moving forward.
Let's talk about, if you're elected, who will be your predecessor, which is Attorney General Chris Carr. He'll be leaving office. He's not running for another term as Attorney General. When you look at Chris Carr's time in the job, in the role of Attorney General, from your vantage point, what did he do well, what did he get right, and what did he get wrong?
Well, he would tell you the one thing that he has had to build upon and continues to build upon until he finishes office is the criminal law jurisdiction of his office. A lot of people don't realize some attorney generals have their own grand jury, meaning they can prosecute any crime anytime, and they really are the top law enforcement official. We still are the top law enforcement official in our state, but we work with prosecutors. We don't have our own grand jury in Georgia. And so it's important you have working relationships with your prosecutors, again, that you elect locally in your circuits to prosecute crimes. And under Chris Carr's leadership, we created the human trafficking unit, we created the gang unit, we created the retail theft unit, 3 units where we have people that train and specialize in those types of prosecutions, all organized crime. And so we got to continue to build upon that. I'm proud in my race to have over 100 elected law enforcement officials that have endorsed me, and more are coming. And these are folks in the trenches fighting gangs, fighting human trafficking, dealing with fentanyl, of course, retail theft. Every corner of our state. When I travel our state, I hear the same problems you have in the mountains, as you have on the coast, as you have in the cities and the farms in South Georgia. These crimes are everywhere. And what you need is someone in this office that's going to go and prosecute the crimes and go after these violent offenders, not worry about the politics, not try to make headlines, go and do the job. And that's why so many folks are backing me. And I think Chris has done a good job building that up, and I want to double down on that.
You're a practicing attorney, but correct me if I'm wrong here, your background, your areas of practice are in the civil side of things.
That's right,
Do you have any background prosecuting criminal cases?
I do not. To be candid, I was an intern in law school with our district attorney's office, but otherwise I've been in a civil law firm the whole time.
Do you think that lack of criminal experience may be a challenge for you as you point to wanting to continue Chris Carr's legacy of leaning into criminal prosecution at the Attorney General level?
Well, it's not, because if you ask the district attorneys around our state, they will tell you who they want to be the next Attorney General. I have so many of them lined up with us, and all these sheriffs, bipartisan Republicans, Democrats in our state that have endorsed me. And that's because I have a reputation beyond just my practice of law. I've been the legislator for 14 years. I have led on some very, very important bills. For example, gang enforcement bill, working with Brian Kemp to make sure our prosecutors have the tools to go after those that are recruiting young people to join gangs. My opponent in this race has a background as a prosecutor briefly, but she voted against that bill. Also supported a bill that gives more tools, as requested, to our law enforcement officials to go after fentanyl, those that are bringing this drug into our state. And I supported that, led on that bill. My opponent voted against that. And so I'm someone that law enforcement has leaned on over the years to pass meaningful legislation. I have the reputation of someone who gets it, who trusts our prosecutors, trusts our men and women of law enforcement, and that's why they want me to be the next Attorney General.
You referenced some of those endorsements. You picked up another big one earlier this month. I want to say, well, it's August now, so it was back in July. The summer's flying by, but you picked up a big endorsement. President Donald Trump has endorsed you in this race. Is there anything that you disagree with the president on?
Yes, I disagree with everybody. My wife and I disagree on things. I disagree with every politician I serve with on some things. And so I'm not going to sit here and name every little thing I've disagreed with him on. And I can tell you I met President Trump for the first time a couple weeks back, and he decided he wanted to endorse me. He's asked for nothing from me. He wants someone that did the job, and that's why I'm proud to have endorsements of all types of elected officials, Republicans and Democrats. And so I'm proud to add Donald Trump to that list.
I know you said you don't want to list everything you disagree with him on. Obviously, there are lots of points of agreement. He wouldn't endorse you if there weren't. But can you point to any points of disagreement where you've seen him handle something where you thought you'd take a different tack on it?
I mean, look, everybody will always say sometimes the way you couch things, the way you style things can be better with a lot of us. But I'm not going to sit here and pick apart things that I've didn't like that he did. I can't imagine trying to be president of the United States, all that he has to deal with. When we saw him in Cobb County, he had left coming from, I think it was Delaware. We had soldiers brought back that died in Iran. And I think about, he went from that, came down here and talked about these Trump accounts to help working families and to make sure that young people in our state and our country have something when they start that can grow to help them pay for college, to help them get buy that first car with their first job, buy that first house. There's so much that weighs on anybody in that kind of office. So I'm not going to sit there, Republican or Democrat, and pick apart every decision that he makes.
Let's talk about one of the big decisions Attorney General Chris Carr made a few years ago, and this is in the wake of the 2020 presidential election. There were some states around the country involved in some litigation challenging the results of the presidential election that year, and he opted not to join some of those suits. When you look back on the 2020 election and Chris Carr's decision there, if you were in office as Attorney General, would you have done the same thing and stood by the validity of Georgia's presidential election?
So I was a state senator at that time, and I was open about how a special session wasn't going to accomplish anything for us during that time. I'd have to go back and look at case by case. I mean, Chris Carr had the benefit of diving in case by case, seeing evidence, and making a decision whether or not to join cases. But I think for all of us, Republicans, Democrats, it's time to move on from 2020. After the 2020 election, we did a sweeping bill in 21, Senate Bill 202. Whenever you still remember the number of a bill, you know it was an important bill, that went back in and really codified a lot of things with our elections and added IDs to all forms of voting, created more transparency in our election tabulation process that fixed a lot of the issues we had in 2020. And my hope at that time, the partisans and the people, the Democrats in Georgia said this was going to make it harder to vote, and they call it Jim Crow 2.0. We lost the All-Star game that year. Well, I literally took that bill, which was a long bill, because I worked on it, took it with me and went on the campaign trail that year. And I went to Rotary clubs, Kiwanis, everybody that would talk to me had the bill with me, said, this is what this bill does. It requires IDs for all forms of voting. It puts sunshine on the drop boxes and the tabulation process. I went through the entire bill. And when I got done, nobody was against it, despite all the noise you heard about that bill. And so I think it's time that we all move on from 2020. And as a candidate, I'm ready to do that. And my job is to make sure our election laws are enforced moving forward. We have great laws on the books here in Georgia. And I don't know why anybody would be opposed to voter ID. I'm not sure why anybody would be opposed to making sure that only American citizens are voting. No one should oppose going after fraud in our elections. As Attorney General, if there's allegations of fraud moving forward, I will do my job, whether it's a Republican committing the fraud or a Democrat committing the fraud. Wherever the allegations are, I'm going to go and investigate that, and if it happens, we'll make examples out of people.
Let's talk about a couple last topics here. We want to be respectful of your time. Affordability has been a topic we've touched on a couple times here. I want to ask you one last question on that front. There has been increased attention on the issue of oftentimes out-of-state landlords, frequently corporate landlords who are buying up homes, buying up apartments, and some investigations have alleged raising the prices that people who want to live in those spaces have to pay, either to rent them or to, if you're in the home buying market, it's just making things more expensive to find a place to live. If you're elected Attorney General, what will you do about corporate landlords?
Well, I'm going to enforce the laws we have on the books now. I was proud to work on legislation, I believe it was this past session and the year before, that set certain minimum standards for landlords to make sure tenants have basic rights to things like air conditioning in their houses, to make sure that our landlord-tenant laws aren't abused when someone has paid their rent and they don't have due process before they're kicked out. I would love to move Georgia more towards a place where more people who want to buy a home can buy a home. And you're right, when you have more people coming in and buying up in bulk, it's driving up not just the price of rent, but also driving up more home prices, because everyday Georgians who wanted to buy their first home could have bought that home that's been bought up by some big corporation. And so, again, I got a history of working on these issues. We also passed legislation in the past I supported to limit what out-of-state buyers can buy in our state, and I'll enforce those laws. And I'm going to make sure if you're coming into our state to do business, you're going to follow all of our rules and not take advantage of Georgia families.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground. I think this is a good place to end. We always ask this last question in interviews like this with candidates. We want to pose it to you, to an undecided voter out there still making up their minds. Your closing pitch to them would be what?
Brian Strickland has a reputation. Growing up in this state, raising my two boys, I grew up on a farm in Henry County, come from a working class family. When I was elected to the legislature at an early age, I started from day one taking on real issues. I have not just gone out and given your typical political speeches, sent you a mailer and says, here's 3 red meat or 3 things Democrats want to hear that I voted on. I went and showed you some real work that I've done. I worked on mental health reform. I've led on criminal justice reform, child care affordability, getting folks into our workforce, out of our prison system. There's so many things I've worked on in the past. I'm a hard worker. If you want to elect an attorney general that's going to give great speeches and just fire up a base, do press conferences, and work for a national party, you have another choice in this race. If you want a workhorse who's going to go in every single day and fight for families just like my own, then Brian Strickland's your candidate to be an ex-attorney general.
All right, State Senator Brian Strickland, running for Attorney General. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate the time.
And the election is just less than 100 days away now. It's coming up in November. November 3rd is Election Day. Brian Strickland, the Republican nominee in the race for Attorney General. Tanya Miller is the Democratic nominee. All right, we want to shift gears here. We're going to take you some breaking news. You're looking at a live picture right now from the Bronx in New York, where the New York Fire Department is confirming on their social media page that the building you see these firefighters working on here is now a 5-alarm fire. Details are still coming in. That confirmation came just about 30 minutes ago. Obviously, this is a live picture, so you're seeing that camera move around a little bit. Here's what we do know right now, though. Again, FDNY, the Fire Department of New York, confirming this is a 5-alarm fire in the Bronx. CBS News is reporting there are at least 5 people injured in this fire. CBS News saying that this fire began as an explosion of some kind. So details still very much coming in, but as you look live on your screen right now, you can see those flames. And firefighters have been battling them for quite some time now. FDNY on their X account about an hour ago confirmed that they were there. Firefighters were working to put the flames out. It's now been an hour plus, and you see, this is still a live picture, Jordan, right? I mean, and you see, this is live right now. Those flames are still burning up what appears to be, we don't know where we can't see the ground from here, but maybe 3rd or 4th story window. You can see those flames still leaping out as firefighters work to contain the flames inside of this building in the Bronx. Looks like the 4th story there as you take a look. Again, details still pretty limited here. What we do know is that FDNY, the Fire Department of New York, confirms this is now a 5-alarm fire that their firefighters are working to contain in the Bronx. CBS News is reporting at least 5 people have been injured in this fire that began, again, according to CBS's reporting, as an explosion. We're going to continue to keep a close eye on this situation in New York City, in the Bronx. As we learn more, we're going to bring it to you. Right now, we are going to take a very brief break. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back in. 2:30 is your time right now. And as we continue to monitor the big stories happening all across the country, we're going to turn our attention to the west, where that fire continues to burn in Spokane, Washington. Frontline crews are facing a sweltering heat wave as they battle those flames. So meanwhile, the man authorities say is responsible for setting the most destructive fire in Washington state's history appeared in court for the first time. NBC's Morgan Chesky has the latest from Spokane.
Now, right now, 37-year-old Aaron Farnacci is being held on a $1 million bond, charged with starting the very fire that has burned thousands of acres, hundreds of homes, including the very one that used to stand behind me. We are waiting to learn more about what his potential motive may have been, as well as contributing factors to this charge when he's arraigned tomorrow in Spokane. In the meantime, crews have an incredible battle ahead of them as tens of thousands of residents here are waiting to go back to their homes, whether they are burned or not. Out of concerns of another reignition, crews in this hilly, steep terrain now have to battle rising temperatures with the arrival of a heat wave that is expected to last through at least the weekend, pushing temperatures past 90 degrees, only increasing that fire risk throughout this entire area. The mayor, again, calling this the worst natural disaster to ever strike this place. And that statement is, of course, being viewed a little differently now with the charge against 37-year-old Farnacci, with residents having to grapple with the fact that this horrific disaster may not have been an accident. We'll send it back to you.
And for the first time since the Old Trails fire swept through over the weekend in Spokane, cameras were allowed into the areas that were devastated, including the devastated Westgate neighborhood out in Spokane. Corey Howard was granted access to take a look at the damage and the long road to recovery.
We're getting our first look at the Westgate neighborhood just north of Indian Trails off of 9 Mile Falls Road, and it's completely devastated. We're walking through, we're looking at just an entire neighborhood wiped out by the Old Trails fire. Now, a lot of people have been asking us, why is it still under level 3 evacuation if there's no more fire in the area? And one of the reasons is what you see right over here. We talked to firefighters this morning who said that wasn't smoldering. And that's why people can't come back right now, because all it takes is just one more ember, a strong gust of wind, and some of these homes that did survive could be going up in flames. And the person that talked to us about that is joining me right now, Ben Kossel, Public Information Officer with California Team 7. Thank you so much for joining us here. You said that's one of the many reasons that this is still under level 3 evacuation. What else do people need to know? Why can't people come back in this neighborhood?
So not only do we have the potential for flare up in some of these smoldering situations like you're witnessing right now, Corey, but we also have an insane amount of work being done here between the utilities companies out here fixing up broken pipes, broken water mains, electrical companies out here trying to fix it down, the power poles that have been damaged, and sometimes that could be full replacement of the power poles, so you have down power lines everywhere. It's just a very dangerous situation still for residents to come back into. We understand that people really want to get back to their homes, and we are working around the clock to get them there. But until this is a truly safe environment from which people to come in and start trying to pick up the pieces, we have to keep it at this level.
You were talking about sort of the work that's being done here in the final stages of this. Something about a cold test, cold glove test? Something?
Yes, so we have a process. We go through multiple phases when we go through a fire. There's obviously the suppression, and then we have mop up. That's our initial cleaning up of anything that's still out there. And then we do a process called cold trailing. And that's where we'll actually have wildland firefighters out there with gloves off, putting their hands on the ground, feeling for those hot spots like you see over here. Yeah. And when they find them, when they identify them, they have the equipment with them, whether it's through a little hand pump or they have a Type 6 engine with them with a hose, and they come and they spray it to make sure everything is truly dead out.
And then people can come back to their homes.
Hopefully that would be the case, yes.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate your time.
Yes, thank you.
Corey Howard reporting from the Westgate neighborhood.
Certainly thinking of everybody out in the West Coast who is going through that terrible situation. Right now, we do want to take you to more developing news. This is out of North Carolina, where North Carolina law enforcement officials are delivering a press briefing that has just begun following a shooting that took place this morning that took the lives of multiple people at a home in North Carolina. Let's listen in.
SBI, scene investigators are on scene processing evidence and conducting interviews. There is no threat to the general public, and the event is contained to the above address. The Caswell County Sheriff's Office has notified victims next of kin. We are not releasing those names at this time out of respect for the family. The Caswell County Sheriff's Office is the lead agency in this case. They are assisted by the SBI, the North Carolina State Highway Patrol, the Prospect Hill Fire Department, the Caswell County EMS, Caswell County Emergency Management, Caswell County 911, and the Person County Sheriff's Office. Additional information will be released as it becomes available through press releases and the SBI and the Caswell County Sheriff's Office special media platforms. Thank you.
Chair, can you answer some questions as it relates to the shooting itself?
I'll try as much as I can.
Is this a domestic situation? What can you share with us in regards to all the people that were involved in the four victims?
All the members were in the same family.
Sure. We read online a few comments, and we just want to confirm or just debunk it, that this family or someone in this area had called previously about this. Can you confirm or deny that, or did someone go to the police station, about
I cannot confirm that, but I can, and I don't want to deny it out of respect for the family, but we do not have any evidence that this family had reached out to the Caswell County Sheriff's Office.
Sure. Do we know if the suspect is among the deceased?
The suspect is among the deceased.
Can we know ages of the people that died? Were there children involved?
All victims were adults.
Can you share when exactly deputies received the call about a disturbance at this address?
A little bit before, I think, in my statement, a little bit before 8 o'clock.
We're being told that the incident took place around the house, not necessarily inside the house, and that the victims were actually outside when law enforcement arrived. What can you tell us about that, Chief?
Yes, sir. What you've heard was probably true, but it's under investigation at this time.
As it relates to the person, the suspect,
Can I correct that and say that it happened at the address of 352 Brooks Road?
My understanding, again, talking to some folks, is that the suspect did not live in that area, or does not live in this area. He did not live at that home. He doesn't even live in the neighborhood. What can you tell us about that? He actually showed up at this house at 8 o'clock this morning, either driving there or somehow, but getting there, does not live there. Can you tell us
Well, all I can tell you now is that is still under investigation. It might have been found out exactly where he lived at, but right now we still in investigative stage, and all that will come out later.
Sheriff, what is your message tonight to the community?
That this was an isolated incident, and that please keep the family in your prayers.
I apologize if this was asked and I didn't hear it. Weapon was used. Is this multiple weapons? Can you tell us a little bit about the weapons that were used?
No, sir. That part, I'm not familiar with the investigative stage where they know which weapons was used. I can tell you this: all the decedents were killed by a gun.
Do we know who notified 911 and by proxy sheriff's deputies about this incident? Who made the call?
Someone on scene.
What did you say, sir?
Someone on scene.
Can you elaborate? Is that a family member, a neighbor, a surrounding bystander who was in the area at that time?
No, sir. It was not a random bystander, and like I said, there was someone on the scene.
It's the person that's been transported to the hospital.
Yes, sir. It was someone on scene. Yes, sir.
Sheriff, the person that was transported to the hospital, is this someone that was also an adult, or are they a minor?
Everyone at the incident was an adult.
I think we're good. Everybody else good?
Is there anything else you'd like to viewers and just people in the community?
Thank you for coming.
I guess just to clarify the question, adult means 18 and over?
Yes. Thank you.
And we've just listened in to that press update from Caswell County Sheriff Tony Durden Jr. in Caswell County, North Carolina, following a shooting that took place in North Carolina at a home earlier today that claimed the lives of multiple people. We're going to go to a brief break. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back in. It has been a very interesting last couple days here in Georgia. If you're a sports fan, particularly if you're a Braves fan, and really it's all throughout the Southeast. Braves country is not just here in Georgia. We got Reggie Chapman in the streaming center to break it all down with us. Hello, Reggie.
Hello there. Happy Sushi Wednesday, Zach. How are you?
Yeah, you know, this is good. Usually I hype you up when we bring you in. That was a good reverse hyping. I appreciate it. For those who don't know, many fine establishments, mostly grocery stores here in Atlanta,
I didn't know this.
$5 sushi deal on Wednesdays.
Didn't know it.
This is not sponsored. This is not a promotion. But you got to address the elephant in the room. No free ads here. That's right. Let's talk Braves baseball.
Let's do it.
Maybe they're having a little bit of Sushi Wednesday today as well.
I know.
Sometimes you got to eat your feelings, and there were a lot of big feelings following the trade deadline.
Yeah.
Reggie, you're deep in this stuff. I'm tangential. I'm not in it like you are, but it broke containment. I was seeing tweets and messages and posts from people who are guests on the Georgia Vote. They are politics people expressing some big feelings about the Braves' actions or inactions on trade deadline.
Yeah.
What's the state of play right now?
Well, I love that it feels like that, because I was actually wondering how close did it get to you, because it has been very chaotic.
Sports cross all lines. Braves baseball crosses all lines.
I mean, Braves country is huge, and they are not happy, which is very clear to me, because I did like let me hop on Twitter, be like, hey, Braves country, like, how are we feeling today? And within like 6 minutes, there was 50 responses being I'm really upset, like this, that, and the other. And the crux of it all is the fact that the Braves didn't trade for like a frontline starting pitcher, something that they knew they needed like at the beginning of the year. I remember going to spring training out there in Florida, and that was questions we were asking the general manager, Alex Anthopoulos. Like, is this something you kind of go after? Yeah, there was guys that were hurt when people got hurt. You knew that it was a very thin kind of margin on how good this team could be based on the pitching. They've been pitching well despite the fact that they don't have another frontline guy outside of Chris Sale. So trade deadline is come and gone. People really upset. There was one guy that responded to my tweet who was like, yo, hey, good morning, Reggie. And I was like, I responded. I was, hey, good morning to you. And the first response to that was like, fire Alex Anthopoulos. So people not really happy, Zach.
You get the spectrum here of reactions. Let me take the hype hat off here for a second, though. Anthopoulos is a pro. It's a professional organization. Fans are going to do what fans do, which is have big feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Is the organization seeing something that a lot of the fan base isn't?
I think what it is that they weren't able to lock it stinks as it's become a pattern. I think what people are really upset about is the fact that it seems like a pattern over the course of the last amount of years where they said they were going after a frontline starting guy and they just weren't able to land one. And this seems like another situation where they tried to get one and things just didn't work out. I mean, there were reports of them going after certain people that it just never worked out. At the end of the day, they did bring in a couple of different players, both at the plate and a couple of pitchers as well, a couple of minor league guys that have made some moves here over the last couple of days. But and I think at the end of the day, they are moves that will help. I mean, you go out there and get Tyler Mahle, who's a guy that can probably pitch at the back end of this rotation. Lane Thomas is a right-handed hitter that has been incredible hitting left-handed pitching. And then you also grab Brent Suter from the Angels, who has been super, super excited to be here, which we'll talk about in a second. But I think overall, the issue is that people are just frustrated over years and years and years of waiting for them to finally land a guy. And it feels like the issue this time, once again, was not being willing to give up some of the prospects. Anthopoulos talked about the other day, there was a couple years ago they wanted to go after a frontline guy, and it would have been trading Drake Baldwin, who, of course, has been an incredible player for the Braves this season. Even a couple years before that, people were trying to trade for Michael Harris II, who, of course, has been amazing for the Braves over the course of his career, and was both those guys were Rookie of the Year. So that's where it all issues out. He really didn't want to give up those draft picks, or those prospects. But at the end of the day, this team has the talent, has been playing well, maybe overachieving for what people thought at this time, and they were hoping that maybe Alex would reward them with a starting caliber pitcher to be able to take this team to the next level.
Let me play devil's advocate for one more kind of iteration of this, because I can imagine some folks who may want to defend the decisions deadline day. They look at the standings, see that the Braves are leading their division by, I think, 7 or 8 games over the Phillies.
Yep.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
What's the ceiling for this team as it is currently constructed?
Well, this is probably going to be the team that you're going to get rolling out there more or less. There's a couple of guys that maybe you get back. I think that you get Sean Murphy back yesterday to have his first game back. Ha-Seong Kim, who has been not good at all at the shortstop position. I think I'm probably underselling how poor he's played this season. His batting average is under 100. So he's not been good, but you get both those guys back, and there's the potential for a guy like A.J. Smith-Shawver to be able to come back as he's currently working his way through a rehab assignment. Maybe Spencer Swellenbach. This is kind of a miracle situation where Spencer Swellenbach maybe comes back and pulls off a miracle and is able to pitch again. There's so many questions around Spencer Strider. We're in the clubhouse yesterday, and his stuff isn't even in there anymore. So there's a good chance he's not coming back this season. So you wonder how far, and I've been joking about this, how far like the power of friendship can kind of get you, because you have what you know for sure in a starting caliber guy like Chris Sale, and you have to keep relying on guys that have been kind of overachieving. Bryce Elder has been overachieving over the course of most of this season. He's kind of come back down to earth. Grant Holmes has had good moments like yesterday where he went 6 scoreless, and I think that's why Alex Anthopoulos, when he comes to talk to people and can say, hey, we're still pitching well, our ERA is still low, and they're still figuring things out. The frustration is the fact that it feels like every time one of those guys comes out there, you really don't know. You know what Chris Sale, and then everybody else is kind of a question mark.
What did Anthopoulos say? I'm sure he got the question.
Yeah.
What's his response to what's our banner say here at Braves fans? Disappointed. What's his response when he gets that question?
They asked him pretty pointedly, was in the days leading up, somebody asked him, hey, are you guys going after a frontline starter? And then after it didn't happen, he basically was like, we didn't go into this trade deadline with looking for anything specific. We were just looking to get the team better. And we feel like, and this is Alex talking, we feel like we got this team better. And this whole idea is that if you add to a team, you got better. And he didn't really touch on the idea that maybe the elephant in the room, that they didn't get the starting caliber pitcher they wanted to. He did say they tried. But at the end of the day, try. At the end of the day, he didn't bring in a guy in. So, but he does feel like, as the general manager, he feels like he did his job to bring in a couple of different guys. And I agree. Like, Lane Thomas is a good player they brought in. Tyler Malik can be a guy that can eat some innings. Same thing with Suter, and a couple other minor league pieces. But you were looking for a star. A real help that you knew you could rely on, and those guys are all pieces that can kind of get shuffled in, and you didn't end up getting a guy that's like a dude to be a guy right behind Chris Sale in that starting rotation.
Let's save this, Alex Anthopoulos, if he's watching, save this clip and fast forward a couple months, and we'll see how this holds up.
He said a lot of that, actually.
Because
like, we'll see.
Yeah, and we will see, because, well, we'll see.
Yes.
One guy we know who is excited.
Yes.
Fired up to be here. Brent Suter.
Mm-hmm.
He's a reliever. We heard from him.
Yes.
And talking about being the dude, he is a dude who is excited to be here.
This was a really exciting thing yesterday, because we roll inside of the clubhouse, of course, asking people questions of, what is the reaction? Matt Olson's like, hey, we trust Alex Anthopoulos to do the job. But he also pointed out, like, that we can't forget about the guys that they brought in here. We are really excited to have these guys, and nobody more excited to have these guys as one of those guys that came in here. I mean, we talked to Brent, and I'm going to let you guys hear from him here in a second, but it was so refreshing to be able to hear from a guy that was just excited to put on a Braves uniform, and, I mean, he had me fired up after talking to him. Here's a listen.
I mean, you talk about excited to be on a great team. What an organization. I actually lived in Lilburn, Georgia for years growing up, and I was a huge Braves fan in the 90s when they had, Maddox, Glavine, Smoltz. So this is a dream come true for me. I was a big Braves fan growing up, and just always been a fan of how the organization goes about it. And I've heard nothing but great things about how they deal with families. I got 3 boys of my own, so super excited to bring them down and let them experience, being part of a Braves family. But just very much respect for how they go about it on and off the field. I guess now it's how the Braves go about it, and just amazing respect level, I think, from the whole industry, honestly. All baseball respects the Braves big time, and can't wait to put this uni on and pitch in Truist Park. It's a dream come true for sure. Amazing. I mean, I've been respecting and watching these guys do their thing for years and years, and to be on the same team with them is an honor. And we got some guys banged up that are getting back, like Suarez and all that, but can't wait to see him shine again. But just crazy good room. People keep walking in. I keep it like, oh my gosh, you're on the team, dude. You're on the team. This is you forget how good and deep this team is, and it's just a special place. And just everyone's made me feel so welcome already. And I've been here like 2 hours, so it's amazing. About 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
Did you go to Old Turner Field? Did you go to
Oh yeah. I went to Old Turner Field. Went to a World Series game in '95 when they, not the clinching one, but when that year they won it. I went to one of those games. I actually was going to go to Parkview High School where Matt Olson went. I played college ball with his brother. Funny enough, his older brother. So just a bunch of really cool connections with Matt and some other guys in this room. Played with Ken Lee, Devon, Dominic Smith, a bunch of other guys in this room before, and it's just an honor to play with them again and play with these new guys. I loved the Atlanta Braves. I can tell, I was a big time fan. When I moved to Cincy and I ended up adopting the Reds. I'll be honest, sorry, full confession. Ended up adopting the Reds, but in the '90s, you kidding me? This team was unbelievable. It was the middle there, 14 division run, and It was a special place to be a baseball fan, and with Hall of Famers all left and right, and can't wait to hopefully meet some of those guys. I know Chipper hangs around a little bit and some other guys, but I loved the Atlanta Braves, loved them, and I still do.
Oh man, how good is that?
That was the coolest moment of my day yesterday. Just because when we're surrounded by all the negativity, you forget that these guys are coming here to be able to help and come contribute to this team. And
A
then,
very good team.
and
We
a
gotta
very
keep
good team
reminding.
that is leading the division, is one of the best teams in baseball, and has been playing really well recently. And for a guy like that who gets, he said he was actually on a golf course when he got the news that he was traded. He did finish the round, he told us. He said he didn't play super well because he was a little bit distracted.
He
And
got it done, though. And
he
he's
got
a
it
reliever.
done.
That's the job. You got to get it done.
Emotional, of course, to leave the West Coast and leave those guys, but he's really fired up, as you guys can see here. He used the word jacked up as soon as we asked him the first question. I'm jacked up to be here. And for him to be able to be here, get out of the Angels organization, which is, as we all know, is not very good, to be able to come to a team that is a perennial winner and is looking to try and win a World Series title, despite what everybody may think about this roster and the current setup, it was really, really refreshing to see in here.
And from an outsider's perspective too, it's always cool when we get to hear from pros who are kind of bringing their genuine selves.
Yes.
And you're up close in it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like it is rarer and rarer to get those kinds of moments. There's so much media training. There's so much, and you can understand it from some perspective. There's such a spotlight on all these athletes. But just to see a guy be unbridled and unvarnished was really, it brought a smile to my face too.
It's really cool, and I've heard this talked about a lot also. Alex does a good job of bringing in players that seem to understand the gravity of playing for the Braves. I think that we go back to the beginning of the season, we're out there in spring training talking to guys like Mauricio Dubon, who obviously didn't grow up in America, but grew up watching the Braves, was a fan of the Braves. You mentioned the same thing with Suter mentioning Chipper Jones or Andrew Jones. A lot of these guys grew up being Braves fans and being big fans of the team, and has maybe gone to a game. And we heard it in there. Suter went to a game during that World Series run in '95. It's this team. You always forget because we're here just how big Braves country is, and so the moments that we get, like personal moments like that, are oftentimes when them being like, "Yo, I'm honored to be able to put on this jersey. What it means to this people, what it means to this city." Because they grew up being a Braves fan. It's one of the coolest things we get to see.
You talk about Braves country too. Ted Turner played a role in that as well, not just for Turner, the stadium, but the Superstation. There were people suddenly all across the country watching Braves games on TV. And so whether you're in Lilburn, which is where Suter was for a little bit, or you were anywhere else in the country, you got to see the Braves, and you got to see a really good iteration of that team in the 90s. They're trying to do it again. We're going to see.
We will see. If that's one thing Alex said a lot, he said, people have made moves. Some people did this, some people did that. At the end of the day, we have to see these guys come out there and play, and he's hoping that the guys that he brought in make a major difference.
Baseball's a funny game.
Sure is.
Just look at the Red Sox for an example of
out of nowhere.
You never know what may happen. So we're rooting for a very interesting and exciting run for this iteration of the Braves. This is who we got.
The power of friendship, baby. I'm telling you, if you think about it, that 2021 team was just like that, where it was you had a couple of guys you thought maybe could pitch well, then it was just kind of chaos after that. If it worked once, it might work again. We'll see.
Well, on that note, I think we can all agree we're always rooting for the power of friendship.
Power of friendship, baby. That's how we get it done here.
Streaming Center.
Yes, sir.
My friend Reggie Chapman. We'll see you next time. We're going to take a very brief break. Another one of our friends just walked into the studio. Julie Martin is standing by. It's just all friends over here. We're going to take a brief break. Your forecast is up next. Hey, welcome back in 3:02. Your time this Wednesday afternoon, and we're going to go straight over to our forecast. Meteorologist Julie Martin joining us once again. And Julie, we always love having you in the stream pod here, but especially on a weather pattern week like we have here, where it feels like as the afternoon gets into groove, so too do some storms and some showers.
Yeah,
and
we've been getting going.
yeah, let's well, take it away. I'm excited to see this radar in the sense of not so excited.
Yeah, a lot of activity right now out on the radar, taking you out to it. We are dealing with some pretty strong storms in places like Cherokee County right now, portions of North Fulton County as well, Roswell over toward Milton and Canton. Also back off to our east, looking at some pretty decent storms coming across the Alabama border right now up near Floyd County. And it does look like most of us are getting at least some of this scattered activity this afternoon. So we'll expect to dodge these once again, much like we've been doing the past several days. You will need the rain gear. Right now over the downtown area, a couple of showers. You notice the sky darkening there, 89 degrees, feeling like 94. So these are these heat of the day, typical summertime storms, but some of them can be quite strong. So we do have to watch out for the lightning there and also the heavy downpours. We are looking at the storm action staying with us through about 8 o'clock this evening. Then we start to see that pull back and diminish after we lose the heat of the day, the daytime, the sunshine. Taking a look here at our high temperatures, 87 today, which is a couple degrees below average. Here's a look at 4:30. Again, we'll notice these just rinse and repeat storms coming back through the area once again this afternoon into this evening. And then tomorrow, same thing. We're going to have more chances of more afternoon and evening storms coming through. And then Friday, again, but lesser chances in general as we head into the weekend. So the flood risk is marginal. That is because any of these pockets of storms, they have pretty high rainfall rates, so they could trigger localized flash flooding. Both today and tomorrow, you definitely want to watch out for some of those low-lying areas. Over the next week, we get maybe 1 to 2 inches of rainfall, and we are still down a bit for the year. Just at 27.73 inches. Our normal is 31. Even though we had a really wet July, we could still use a little more rain. So keeping the scattered storm action going over the next foreseeable future, Zach, and temperatures, we're going to get a little warmer too, creeping back into the 90s by the time we hit Friday.
Summer in Georgia. There it is.
Yeah, pretty typical.
And in some ways, when I see that forecast, it's kind of grounding in the sense of everyone's going back to school, and in my brain, I am fighting this urge to feel like, okay, it's the fall.
Yeah.
It's not
yet.
It's
Not
August.
yet.
This is what it looks like. Julie,
Yeah,
thank you.
that's a good point, though. They need to have the umbrellas or the rain gear for that
Also,
ride home.
Yeah.
At the bus
if
stop,
you're at the bus
yeah.
stop in the morning, morning you're probably okay. But
Yeah.
afternoons,
Yeah, for sure.
don't forget the umbrellas. Julie, thank you for getting us through a weather pattern that requires keeping a close eye on the radar.
Sure.
We'll see you later. And we are going to take a very brief break. We will see you all later, but not too much later. We're going to take a 2 or 3 minute break. Stay with us. It's August right now. Kids are beginning to go back to school all across Georgia. September will be here. It's right around the corner. And this year, on September 11th, it will be the 25th anniversary of the attack that took place September 11th, 2001. For so many of us, we remember exactly where we were when that attack took place. But more and more people are too young to remember it. 1/3 of the United States population now is too young to remember or fully understand the gravity of what took place on 9/11. So earlier today, Jonathan Martin, he was joined by the Vice President of Education Programs at the 9/11 Memorial and Museum, a woman named Megan Jones, to discuss new programs and new curricula the museum is rolling out to help explain, to help teach the next generation of Americans the impact of what happened on that day in 2001.
You know, a lot of us think back to that day and where we were, what we were doing. I want to start by asking, where were you that day on 9/11 and what do you remember?
Well, on September 11th, 2001, I had just graduated from college. I was getting ready to start graduate school in Columbus, Ohio. And I remember hearing reports of, a plane hit the World Trade Center. And I thought, oh, this, like many people, this must have been just a horrible accident. But I immediately thought of my cousin Brian, who was at work in Lower Manhattan, right across the street, actually, at One Liberty Plaza. And I knew that he was in the office that morning, so I immediately called my aunt and drove over to her house, and we sat for hours, not knowing where he was or what had happened. And fortunately, when he came out of the subway at the World Trade Center, he did see the second plane hit the World Trade Center and later was caught in the dust cloud. And fortunately, like I said, a stranger off the street found him and brought him to his apartment where they finally found a working phone. And it was hours later that we discovered that he had survived. He was safe, but all the while, his wife was across the river in Jersey City watching this unfold, not knowing what was happening. So we were very fortunate in this situation.
You can imagine just, how you were feeling and how all of your family was feeling. Megan, we're reaching a point now where many teachers were children themselves back on 9/11, may not have even been born yet when the attacks happened. So how does that change the way the history is now being taught in schools?
Well, as you mentioned, nearly 100 million Americans have no living memory of the attacks. So this is a generational shift that we have, and included in that are educators. In fact, when I work with educators, the first question I usually ask is, how many of you remember exactly where you were on 9/11, just like you asked me? And the entire room would raise their hands. And now you have, maybe 10 to 20% of them not raising their hands because they were not born. So this really imparts to me the significance of the storytelling, sharing the stories of the people who were there, the people who were killed, family members, first responders, survivors. Really, storytelling is at the heart of everything we do at the museum and our education programs. And so for a generation with no memory and teachers with no memory or little memory, it's important to share both the personal stories of what happened that day and the strategies for teaching this content to the next generation.
Yeah, it's so important. Walk us through a little bit more about the digital learning experience that those students will be able to take part in.
Of course. So the idea behind the digital learning experience is connecting students to the stories, as I mentioned. And so each year we film first responders, family members, people who were young on 9/11, so their age when the attacks happened, and we film them in the museum sharing their stories. So it's about a 30-minute film that's accessible for free for any school, any parents, families, anyone really can participate. The second part of the program that makes it very unique is the live chat. So on the day, as students view the film, there's a chat bubble that appears in the corner, and they can click that button and ask any question that they have about 9/11, and it's routed directly to me and about 15 of my colleagues. So we sit in a room all day long and chat with students from all over the world, answering their questions about 9/11 on that day.
That's so important. Megan, we are all used to seeing the images from that day, some of the most recognizable images, I would say, in American history. When I was talking to you earlier, you had a personal story. Many people have a personal story. How does that provide more context behind the pictures, you think?
Well, it's interesting because the students ask the exact same question that you did. They want to know, where were you? What was it like? What did it feel like after the attacks? And I think they're looking for a connection to a historical event. So that's what we're trying to provide with this experience, is that personal connection. I mean, on 9/11, it affected the entire world. There were victims from over 90 nations, people from all walks of life, all diverse backgrounds. And so for us, it's important to provide access to those people and to those stories for young people in order to help make that connection, bridging that gap between history and memory.
Yeah, and I think about my nephew, I think about my younger family members. We all have a responsibility in carrying this story forward. Megan, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Stay with us. We'll be right back. The Clayton County Water Authority says it is investigating a potential cyber attack after its water pressure dropped in certain areas last week. That acknowledgement comes as the FBI warns of the targeting of water systems in at least 7 states. 11Alive's Grace King spoke with a cyber expert about these attacks.
The Clayton County Water Authority is raising questions about a potential cyber attack last week after a, quote, temporary disruption affected a portion of its operational systems and water service.
It's happening in quite a few places, and what we're seeing is a steady escalation.
In most cases, Leargus Chief Security Officer Patrick Kelly says the affected utilities rely on internet-connected systems, so small staffs can monitor operations remotely.
They're built, to last for 15, 20, 30 years, as opposed to our iPhones, we replace every 2 years. So they're not really built with security at the forefront.
Officials with the Clayton County Water Authority declined to speak with us Tuesday afternoon, but said water was safe and restored within hours.
Now we have disruption, and we're having to do water bullying advisories because we're reducing the pressure and we're not able to make certain that things are purified the way they should. There is another step on the other side of this.
Multiple sources tell NBC News Iran is likely behind a recent wave of cyber attacks on municipal water systems in several states.
Right now, they're focusing on disruption, which is reduction of water pressure, but they haven't moved to actually poisoning water.
Kelly says utilities should be taking a hard look at which systems are connected to the internet and whether they need to be.
We have to go and disconnect those. And we have to do a bit of a risk posture so that we understand which ones are vulnerable and which ones aren't.
And the Water Authority says its focus remains on keeping drinking water safe as its investigation continues.
In Jonesboro, Grace King, 11Alive News.
All right, we're going to bring in an expert for more insight into this topic. Right now, we're joined by Georgia Tech professor Samanzo News from the School of Cybersecurity and Privacy and the School of Electrical and Computer Engineering. Professor, thank you for making the time to talk to us this afternoon. Let's start here. What's the latest? What's your understanding of what is driving these potential cyber attacks of water systems, of all things?
Hey, thanks for having me. So I think there are two aspects to it, the geopolitical aspects, but the technical aspects that I'll focus more on. So from the technical perspective, our United States critical infrastructures being vulnerable to these cyber attacks, it's nothing new, and we've been attacked several times. The same similar kind of attacks that we have seen, so-called advanced persistent threat. Those are different kinds of attacks. Like for example, 2023 World Typhoon by the Chinese discovered them, versus this kind of attack that we saw last week. It is not a stealthy attack. It is just for signaling and causing disruptions. But the attack vector itself that happened through these controllers in water treatment plants and water systems, wastewater systems, generally speaking, those controllers are called programmable logic controllers and PLCs that in our research lab at Georgia Tech, we have decades of research on. We really dissect those and do the vulnerability assessment. They are vulnerable. They're not built to be secure, and they are used not only in water, in all the other totally like 16 critical infrastructure sectors, including energy, power grid, transportation, manufacturing, healthcare, so on and so forth. And water is just one of them. But the fact that the water system is being attacked this time is because out of the 16 critical infrastructure sectors that we have in the United States, 4 sectors are lifeline, essentially critical infrastructures, including energy, water, transportation, and communication. And out of those, the water is the least secure historically in the United States. Hence, usually attackers from Iran really target those, as we saw in 2023 in Pennsylvania and the one that last week that happened in 7 states.
You say that the water system is as a category, the least secure of the critical infrastructure categories across the United States. Put some context on that. I think some people may hear that and be a little bit alarmed. How exposed is our infrastructure right now?
Excellent question. So essentially, in terms of how exposed the infrastructures are, we have a study, we have published work on this. We have found more than 7,000 of these PLCs the work was published 2024, and then we still work on this. But these 7,000 PLCs internationally were in airports, military, hospitals, energy sector, and transportation and manufacturing plants and stuff like that. So, and then we reached out back to those operators, kind of telling them that their PLCs are exposed. And a big portion of them were kind of taken off internet, but those are just 7,000 out of many that were exposed to internet and still are. And the reason for that is because either it is misconfigured, but also it is because the operators would like to have, for convenience, remote maintainability and controllability and monitoring functionalities still while they're not in person in the plant. Hence, they kind of keep it visible from outside so they can connect to and monitor the underlying physical plant, whatever that is. In this case, it's a water system. It could be power system substation or oil and gas refineries. Also, these PLCs are very, very popular. But how to really, and water being the least secure, for example, compared to energy sector, really, when we talk about cybersecurity, everything in practice is reactive, meaning that not much is done proactively before attacks happen. And smart grid and or the power system and energy sector is more secure. And for example, because attacks have happened and they have reacted, right now in energy and power grid, we have mandatory regulatory requirements in the United States for cybersecurity that power utilities like Georgia Power and others get heavily penalized if they don't comply with. In oil and gas, we have TSA requirements, and and finance as well. They are well protected, not like absolutely protected. We also have studies to show that shows regulation also has its own challenges. That, for example, power utilities complain a lot about documentation that they need to do for later auditing purposes. Is a lot of cost and time and effort that has nothing to do, does not contribute anything to cybersecurity. It's just there. They have to do it so that when they get audited, they kind of they don't get penalized. But that's a different story. So regulation definitely would have protected attacks like what we saw last week, which are like this very simple preliminary kind of attacks. To be honest, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to do attacks such as the ones that happened last week. Particularly, let me actually clarify a bit more here. What they did last week, the PLCs are exposed to internet, programmable logic controllers. And what these PLCs are, the best way to think about them is like at home, we have thermostats that sense the room temperature, and then based on the room temperature decides whether the AC should be turned on and off. So that thermostat is a controller that senses temperature and actuates the AC being on and off. If you make that thermostat more professional, more expensive, with a lot more capabilities, we get to PLCs. And the sensor measurement from, as opposed to being like room temperature, is the water level in the water treatment plant. And the actuation is, for example, as opposed to turning on and off the AC, is how much chlorine or how much different chemicals should I pour in the water for treatment purposes. And so by essentially that controller, the PLC is the brain of the system. Now that being exposed to internet, the attacker can see it as we were able to see it in our research. And once they compromise it, they have control over the whole plant. Last week, they didn't do worse things that they could have done. Meaning that they could actuate, they could make this water toxic, they could cause damages that are not easily reversible. They just paused, like, for example, changed the password so that operators couldn't access their controllers, as opposed to really causing physical damage that would have taken months to recover from.
And Professor, we're a little short on time, so I want to end on this note here. How difficult would it be for water systems in Georgia and across the country to make the changes necessary to protect themselves from these kinds of cyber attacks?
So just short answer, kind of cyber attacks that we saw last week to protect from, it is not that difficult at all. What is difficult to protect against is like Wolf Typhoon in 2023 by the Chinese that are advanced persistent threat, and they compromise and do nothing for the time to come in case they want to signal geopolitically United States about different things. But the kind of attacks that we saw last week, you just need to take these PLCs off internet. Even if you don't update them, that is number one action that you should do. But whether or not it will be done, when it is guideline, people usually tend to be more lenient about not doing it. But when it's mandatory regulations like what we have seen in power system, definitely it is done, and so the system gets more secure.
All right, Professor Saman Zanuz with Georgia Tech. Professor, thank you very much for your perspective and your time. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right, and we're going to take a very brief break. We will be right back. Now to some health news. We're getting new updates from the CDC. CDC confirming more than 10,000 cases of cyclospora nationwide. The CDC is also confirming a salmonella outbreak in Minnesota. NBC's Ann Thompson has the latest.
Thousands of Americans who frequent the produce aisle, it's been a summer to forget.
I am on day 17 of this parasite, and I'm not having a good time.
The CDC now confirming more than 10,000 cases of cyclospora infections across 47 states, and they're looking into another 12,000, some of which federal officials say are linked to the recalled iceberg lettuce supplied by Taylor Farms. Ohio's health director says it's not time to avoid fruits and vegetables altogether, but instead focus on inspecting and cleaning the produce we buy.
This is something to take very seriously.
Meanwhile, this morning, diners in Minnesota are waking up to a recent salmonella surge. At least 110 cases have been identified so far, according to the state's health department. With jalapenos from a popular fast casual chain, Chipotle, a main focus. State officials say 89% of those who've gotten sick since mid-June ate at Chipotle, while the rest dined at other Mexican-style restaurants. In a statement, Chipotle saying they, quote, proactively removed the jalapenos in question and replaced them with products from different growers. What's the difference between salmonella and cyclosporiasis?
Cyclosporiasis is from a parasite, and people tend to recover very slowly over a couple weeks' time period. With salmonella, we see 400 deaths a year.
As Americans grow more weary and worried about these events, industry experts say these recent outbreaks highlight correctable flaws in our nation's food supply.
Every company, no matter big, small, should be following very, very strict food safety protocols in order to make sure that they're not killing their customers or making their customers sick.
We're going to take you now to Maryland, where Maryland Governor Wes Moore has just stepped up to the podium and is delivering remarks. Let's listen in.
Did all the work to make sure that we could get everything moving. And importantly, I also want to thank every member of the Maryland General Assembly, all of you who took time to return, who took time to come back to Annapolis, who took time to come and complete this work. I want to be honest, and I know this goes without saying, that frankly, we are here in a way that none of us wanted to be, and none of us hoped to be. But I do want to be clear about why we are back here. That for over a year, I've warned that Donald Trump and the Republicans in Washington across the country are working to rig this system. They are working to weaken voting rights. They are trying to make this pain permanent. We have watched how the Trump-Vance administration came up with creative ways and ways in broad daylight to alter and curb our election process. We have seen the federal government move to put federal agents around voting boxes and voting ballots. We have seen a federal government that has attempted to eliminate mail-in balloting. We have seen how the federal government is very clearly trying to come after and alter our elections. It is all part of a broader national effort to tilt the rules in one party's favor. But none of this should be surprising to anybody, because we have seen how some have spent decades weakening and wrecking the Voting Rights Act, which, by the way, is one of the most important accomplishments of the entire civil rights movement. Something that people who came before us fought for and sacrificed for and died for, so we could have rights, and that they're looking down on us right now and simply asking us, what are we now willing to do to protect those rights? And when it fell, just as we said it would, it took them a matter of weeks to roll back decades of progress and swiftly gut protections. And as I've repeatedly said, it is time that we stop being a party of no and slow and start being a party of yes and now. Where these folks are moving with rapid efficiency to conduct political redlining inside of our communities and our neighborhoods. And I've said it before and I'll say it again, it is not lost on me that I am the only black governor in this country. And I'm seeing how we're watching a silencing of voices to eliminate our community's power and black leadership. And so I have not sat quiet, and I will not. And I will not listen to the audacity of some who will tell me that I need to sit this one out, especially when I understand the journey that others had to go through in order for us to be here. That we will not allow others to try to dilute our voices, or our votes, or suppress participation, or silence communities that have fought to be heard for generations. That we have a fundamental responsibility to meet this moment. And I'm so proud and grateful that these leaders, the General Assembly, and this body, that we united and we took necessary action. Today, I will sign legislation. It is a constitutional amendment on how Maryland draws its congressional districts, but most importantly, what it does is this. It is about making sure that Maryland voters will have the ultimate say. Because I do want to be clear, I do continue to believe strongly and vocally that our country needs national redistricting reform. That it doesn't matter who is in power. That we must make sure
Take us to break. It looks like we just lost the signal there from Maryland, although as I'm looking at our monitors, I think we got it back up. If we do, let's go there now.
until that happens, we cannot be caught flat-footed while we are watching the President of the United States engage in political redlining and gutting decades of progress that generations before us fought for. By passing this amendment, the General Assembly has ensured that Maryland remains committed to being part of this national conversation, and Maryland remains committed to ensuring that our voters will have the final say over what happens and nobody else. And now the question goes to Maryland voters. Maryland voters will decide. And I look forward to working together to pass it with a strong yes, yes, yes in November.
It looks like we're having a little bit of trouble getting that signal of Maryland Governor Wes Moore delivering remarks as he is about to sign redistricting legislation. We're getting word that the signal is back up. We're going to try this one more time. Third time's the charm. Let's go to Wes Moore now.
Thank you, Mr. Governor. Thank you, Madam Lieutenant Governor and Madam Speaker. It is a pleasure to be here with you all today. As the Governor noted, I don't think any of us imagined 10, 15, 20 years ago that we would ever be in this moment in time, because we are living in the most complicated of times imaginable, a period where some of the basic norms of democracy and of our American system are being challenged on an every single day basis. We in the Senate knew from the get-go that we had an obligation to enter this conversation from a position of strength. It is too important right now for us to jeopardize our hope on unsettled legal footing. What we experienced back in 2021 and 2022 was meaningful for us as it is for the people of Maryland. To move forward in this conversation, as we saw the Republican Supreme Court eviscerate the Voting Rights Act, and further saw states like Tennessee and the South move to eliminate and eradicate majority-minority districts, something that was unfathomable just several years ago. The world has changed, and in order to get to peace, you have to enter from a position of strength. Fundamentally, that is what this constitutional amendment is about. It gives Maryland options on sound legal footing to make sure that we can change the direction that we are headed in this country around redistricting. With that, I want to thank the members of the Senate, the members of the House, for their tireless work and conversation. As everyone knows, this has not been an easy issue. There is a deeper question around the state of democracy, and it is why this has been so painful and hard for each and every one of the elected officials that represent the 6.5 million Marylanders that count on us to make the best decisions on their behalf. I see the chair of the Black Caucus, who has been a tireless advocate here, witnessing what's happened across the country, particularly in the South over the last several months, and in speaking with members of our caucus in the Senate, how horrified they have been to see the actions that have been taken by legislatures and their attempts to eliminate decades of progress for the diversity that has created the strength of our country. I want to thank the Speaker for her tireless partnership on this as well. We've had a number of conversations, and this does not happen without hard and difficult discussions where disagreements get figured out around a table and you find a way to move forward together. I'm so pleased to be here as a result of that work. With that, it is my pleasure and honor to hand it over to my wonderful partner in this work, Speaker Jocelyn Pena-Melnick.
Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. How are you? Great. That's wonderful. You have to say it louder. How are you? Good. That's wonderful. We're alive, right? Yes. And yesterday we did a wonderful job. And I am really grateful. Thank you, Governor. And thank you, my friend. You know, we had a lot of conversations, a lot of text meetings, and we worked together. In both houses, our teams, our staff coordinated together, and they worked beautifully together. And I thank you for that, honestly, because we wouldn't be here without that. And I thank you for your time and your guidance. So the debate around this bill has been a little obscure at times, going deep into the weeds of legal technicalities and constitutional language. But the issue that we set out to resolve was straightforward and very important. And I want to thank the Black Caucus for your leadership, and you really set the tone. And my colleagues in the House for coming. We did this last session. We came back and did it again and did it stronger, okay? Delegate Moon, my majority leader, you rock. Thank you for your leadership and for being a transformational leader. It's such a blessing and honor to serve with you. And our staff, they're here in the summer, and the clerks and DLS and the troopers and the amendment office, you know, the library, everyone, bill drafting, and our team in our offices. Thank you for the work you do, because we couldn't do it without you. Seriously. My sister from another mister who would text me and say, you got this. You know, thank you. So in 2022, a judge's novel interpretation of language in the Maryland Constitution created confusion in our congressional redistricting process. If you look at Article 3, Section 4, you see that the only subject mentioned is the Maryland General Assembly. And it talks about how many senators, 47, how many delegates, 141. And then it goes on to Section 2 to discuss the different districts. There's nothing in there that discusses the congressional districts. And for 150 years, every decision made that dealt with Article 3, Section 4 was basically clearly the General Assembly. And when you look at some of the constitutional amendments in, what was it, 1969, 1970, 1972, it was all the General Assembly. It is very clear. It was so clear. So our intent to come back was very simple. It was to give clarity and to have certainty. That's all. That's all that we wanted to do, and is what we did yesterday, both the Senate and the House. And so what is my ask now that all of you are here? My ask is that I hope that when Marylanders vote on this constitutional amendment in November, they would agree that we cannot afford ambiguity and we cannot afford confusion, because the perils we face as a state, as a nation, are simply too grave. We are living in a time where we have no respect for the Constitution, no respect for all three branches of government, no respect for humanity, no empathy. And it's okay for us people of color to be racially profiled, to get rid of our history. We must speak up. And this right here, what we did, it allows us to speak up. And it's simply the right thing to do. So I hope that you at home, when you come November 3rd, that you vote yes, because democracy is at stake. Do it for you, but do it for your kids, for the future, because we must. And I'm very proud of our work. Thank you so much, and let's go sign those bills.
All right, and as we just got done listening in to Maryland legislative leaders and Maryland Governor, Democrat Wes Moore, delivering remarks ahead of the signing of a redistricting bill. Here's the background on this, if you're not familiar, and this is according to our sister station WBAL's reporting in Maryland. This is the next step in a push to redraw Maryland's congressional district maps. So both chambers of the Maryland General Assembly yesterday passed a constitutional amendment referendum bill on congressional redistricting, effectively putting the question to voters. And that's why you heard the Maryland House Speaker there delivering her remarks, giving her position on voters making a decision when they cast their votes on the referendum on Election Day, November 3rd. So the redistricting bill, it's a referendum question, and it's going to be on that November ballot. The constitutional amendment would separate standards of how General Assembly districts are drawn from how future congressional districts can be drawn. So a step in the process of an effort led by some, including Democratic legislative leaders in Maryland, to redraw their congressional district maps. Voters are going to have the say in November, which is less than 100 days away. 3:50 is our time right now. We're going to go to a brief break. We'll be back in a few minutes. As of right now, the conflict in the Middle East continues, but President Donald Trump has said a deal on the Strait of Hormuz could come as early as today, potentially, as Iran and Oman inched toward an agreement to reopen the critical waterway and potentially help bring an end to the ongoing war that is now into many months of ongoing conflict. NBC's Keir Simmons reports from Qatar.
Events appear to be on a knife edge. Days of telephone diplomacy now potentially leading to a deal for the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. But that deal is not yet done. The negotiations between Iran and Oman, the country on the other side of the strait, with Iran continuing as ever to insist that it should have supervision, control, maybe even be able to charge vessels that pass through the Strait of Hormuz. President Trump being informed that Emir of Qatar here in another phone call with President Trump. I think that is an effort to keep him in the loop and see how he feels about what kind of deal might be done, and at the same time also reassure him, because at any moment this can escalate again if President Trump is frustrated, or indeed if Iranian hardliners dislike what is being proposed. What will be proposed will be a version of reopening the strait that does not look like the situation before the war. It seems clear that Iran will have more of a say. It's been determined to try to keep that leverage, and again, that deal all the same may not come to fruition. The next 36 to 48 hours may be crucial. There is a worry here in this region that if a deal isn't done by Friday, we'll be back to escalation.
Turning our attention now to the war in Ukraine. A Ukrainian vegetable seller said a Russian drone chased him around his market stall before exploding, wounding him with shrapnel in what Ukraine called a war crime. Russia said that 7 people, including 3 children, had been killed and dozens were injured at its Black Sea holiday resort in what it said was a deliberate Ukrainian drone attack on civilians. NBC's Matthew Bodner reports from London.
Thank you. 5 years into Russia's war in Ukraine, this is what daily life looks like on and around the front. This video in particular is drawing attention. It shows a Ukrainian civilian, a vegetable seller in the southern frontline city of Kherson, desperately trying to evade a Russian drone that's stalking him near his van. The video was released by the regional Ukrainian military authorities. The video ends with the drone flanking the civilian and detonating near him. The man seen here survived the strike, though not unscathed. He suffered multiple shrapnel wounds, a concussion, and trauma. This behavior by Russian drone operators is indicative of what Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has called, quote, a human safari. Writing on Telegram yesterday, Zelensky said it was evidence that, quote, Russia has gone mad and that Russian soldiers enjoy killing and tormenting people. Ukraine's foreign minister went further, calling the video evidence of a, quote, barbaric war crime. Russia, for its part, has accused Ukraine of employing the same tactics with its drones. Yesterday, Russia said that a Ukrainian drone struck a crowded resort on its Black Sea coast, killing at least 7 people, including 3 children, and wounding 58 others. Ukraine said that Russia shot that drone down over the beach. This is what the war mostly looks like now. Every day, more drone strikes on both sides, with civilians caught in the middle. The United Nations estimates that more than 16,000 civilians have died in the conflict so far. Back to you.
All right, our time with you is nearing its end right now. It's been a busy 2 hours here in the 11Alive Streaming Center, tracking all the news you need to get you through your afternoon across the world and right here at home in Metro Atlanta. And it's going to continue in just a couple minutes. 11Alive News at 4 is coming up in less than 120 seconds. We're going to take a brief break. 11Alive News at 4 continues.